Oh, yeah. Here, I don't.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is September the 7th, 5 p.m. Time for our committee meeting. Silence all of your phone devices or anything that would take away from our decorum of our meeting. If you're going to be speaking to an agenda item, you can fill out the paper in the back and pass it up to me so that you will be recognized. And so let's have a roll call.
Mr. Dancy?
Here.
Mr. McGuire?
Here.
Mr. Benfield?
Here.
Mr. Warner?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Present.
Mrs. Bedros?
Here.
Mrs. Longley?
Here.
Mrs. Gadsby? Mr. Homer? Ms. Phelps? Ms. Bell?
Miss Phelps, sent an email.
Yes, she's on her way.
Yes, she's on her way. She's in the train.
And Miss Legaski's on the way in the building.
Okay.
And we didn't we want to stand and recognize some people who passed away, and we're going to have 10 seconds of silence, and that will be that worked for our system. Miss Sylvia Morrow, Miss Laura Savelle, Mr. Shirty Evans Jr., a student that went to our school, Sean Peer, and just recently, on yesterday, Mr. 17-year-old Ishan Smith. 10 seconds of silence. Thank you so very much. Turn it over to Dr.
Yes, sir. So in my superintendent report today, we have a lot of stuff to discuss, but the first few items, I think we're excited because I'm kind of calling tonight the post-secondary or higher ed night. And we have some representatives from CLTCC, from BIPC, and from NSU. And so I'd like to take a moment first to recognize the person who in the district has made this such a successful program, and that's Ms. Felicia Pinckney, who leads our CTE and our higher ed liaison, so to speak. And she has done a tremendous amount of work with these entities to make these partnerships work. So if you have a second, Ms. Pinckney, everyone knows her, but just stand and give us a wave, Ms. Pinckney. And the first person I'd like to have come to the podium and talk about the significant relationship that we've entered in with them is Dr. Hondel from NSU, and he's going to speak a little bit to how excited they are and how excited we are about this partnership.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be here this evening and share a few things with you. We have been really excited over the last few years to be able to unroll and reveal some extended partnerships with Natchitoches Parish School Board, and really in partnership not only with the university, but specifically with the College of Education and Human Development. And I know that Dr. McAllister, our dean, will be here on Thursday, I believe, to talk a little bit more about some of those partnerships. But About a year and a half ago, Ms. Pinkney and I started really having some conversations about a dual enrollment, which is a statewide initiative, and really not just statewide, but that it has become something that's very much a national initiative to allow high school students the opportunity to gain higher education, college credits before they get to college. And so we are expanding our footprint, so to speak, with Natchitoches Parish and partnership with Northwestern State. We are also, we spent a lot of time talking about a relationship that we have with some other schools in the area, and that is the ability for a high school student to earn an Associate of General Studies degree while still in high school and before they go to college. And so I think we have a couple of students enrolled in that program. It is very rigorous. It takes a lot of commitment on the part of the student and on school personnel to babysit and ensure that students stay enrolled and stay on track and stay in rotation with the different classes that they need to take throughout the program. And so we're really looking forward to a continued growth of that program, but also expanding the dual enrollment footprint. We are also looking forward to getting more certified teachers who are graduate and dual enrollment credentialed in the Natchitoches Parish schools in order to teach some of those dual enrollment courses. And so that's where some of the partnerships with the College of Education and Human Development come in. And as I said, Dr. McAllister is going to talk a little bit more about those on Thursday. But we certainly appreciate the Parish School Board's support of the Educators Rising program, which we hope will continue to create a pipeline of future educators as they get up to the college level and then seek teacher licensure and certification in the state of Louisiana. And we just are really continuing to push our alternative certification programs and provide pathways for teachers to get more credentials as they move through their careers, and also to continue to gain licensure and enroll in licensure programs. So a lot of great things are occurring between Northwestern State and Natchitoches Parish School Board, and we look forward to a continued growth of those programs and continued partnerships. So we just appreciate certainly the opportunity to continue those conversations and look forward to continuing along that pathway. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And next, we have, right now, if you've been following the news, you know that CLTCC and Ms. Morrow will be transitioning to being part of the BIPSI system. And it's just been a seamless transition for them. I think there's been no change except making their program even more robust for their students, and that includes an extension to our students. And so we've signed agreements with them about dual enrollments and things of that nature. And so I would love to have Ms. Morrow and Dr. Bateman, whoever wants to come first and all that, but I know they're a team. So Dr. Bateman with BIPSI or Ms. Morrow, if y'all would like to come up and tell us some of the great things that we have going on with y'all.
Superintendent Eloy, President Harris, and Board, thank you for having us here this evening. And it's always exciting to be with you because I feel like I'm among friends. And as most of you know, we are located right next door to Natchitoches Central. We actually share a property line, so it's just a natural transition for our high school students to come over to our technical college campus. I'm excited about this transition, and I'd love to spend some time with you and tell you a little bit more about all the different opportunities we have for your students. But I want to introduce you to my new boss, Dr. Rick Bateman. As we transition to BIPSI, we will fall under the leadership of Dr. Bateman. And what excites me the most about this transition is that Dr. Bateman gets it. He understands our students. He understands technical education. So I'm really excited about that and looking forward to seeing great things for our campus. Dr. Bateman?
Good evening, and thank you so very much for allowing me to be here. The opportunities that are coming our way through this partnership, this campus realignment, we're just really beginning to get a sense of just what is possible. But the opportunities for young people, it begins with good folks to work with. Lori identified me as her new boss, I'm really her new old boss. She and I worked together when I was the director of Northwest Louisiana Technical College, and we did a lot of great work together at that time. But Superintendent Eloy, it really is your leadership and your openness. We had very frank and open conversations the very first time that we met, and it set the stage for things like this associate degree in business articulation. And because we work so closely with Central Louisiana Technical Community College, it can start as an active fair school board central initiative, and students won't notice when we transition because our folks have done all the work behind the scenes to align the curriculum so that when it moves to a CLTCC awarded degree and becomes a BIPSI degree, it will be seamless. But there'll be a ton of additional opportunities for our young people. Also on the dual enrollment front, we just heard some of the things that are possible through Northwestern. There will be expanded opportunities in the field of dual enrollment with BIPSI as well. And you recognized the young lady,
Ms. Pinckney.
Ms. Pinckney. You recognized her a little bit earlier, and I want to also just share that she has been a tremendous partner and resource for us. So much so that that we are beginning this fall with some dual enrollment opportunities, at BIPSI because of her hard work and because of her partnership with Lori Morrow. So thank you for having me here. I think you'll see much more of BIPSI in your community, and we're excited to serve this region. So thank you very much.
So just to summarize, we have two huge partners that are just right next door to us, and all this is going to do is open up more and more opportunities for our folks. So I know they said how appreciative they are of us, but we are so appreciative of all those folks back there, and there's even more people behind the scenes with them that are helping this to happen. And to have a rock star like Ms. Pinckney just makes all these things so much easier. So we're so excited. Now to kind of the boring stuff, I guess you could say, but the essential stuff. The first thing I want to talk to you about tonight is something that we're all living with in the nation and this state, and it is COVID-19. I want to give you a few updates on some things. I will tell you that I've talked to superintendents all around the state. Our numbers are very indicative of the state's numbers, very indicative of the community's numbers, and are very much in line with what other superintendents are seeing across the state. Some good news is that we do believe that the next vaccine for those under the age of 12 will be applied for federal emergency approval, will be applied for sometime this month. Once they apply for it, it can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks or longer, but we do believe it's going to go a little quicker because of the need. And so we're looking at I say we, the federal government is looking at a rollout for the under 12 vaccine as soon as late fall, early winter. So, and if you look at the numbers based on the vaccine, you know that the vaccine is definitely helping us. So that's something to be excited about and look forward to. Our quarantine and positive numbers, and let me preface this by saying we very much want to be transparent when we put numbers out. That's the whole point of us putting numbers out. But we also recognize that there would be times where people would look at that and whether it be through rumor or anecdote, they would say, oh, those numbers aren't accurate. I thoroughly believe that our numbers are as accurate as possible, and could they at times lag behind because we don't have information, or at times lag behind because someone reported something a little later? Of course. But anytime we see a mistake there, we always go back and retroactively address those numbers to make sure they are reflective. We don't want to hide anything. We want to be truly transparent. So that first week and a half, we combined those numbers in the first week and a half, but we called it week 1. We were at 8% quarantines for the district and 1% positivity rate. I will tell you really what we call week 3 of school. It was the second full week, but it was the third week of school. That was when we kind of had a rough week. We saw 9% quarantines for the district and 2% positivity rate. I'm excited to tell you that last week we saw that reduced down to 6% quarantines and 1% positivity. I'll tell you a few different things of why these numbers, what happens with them. If you see a large number of kids quarantined at an elementary school, you're probably going to see more numbers quarantined at an elementary school than you are high school, because our high school kids are a little better at social distancing, keeping their mask on. If you see a pre-K class that goes home, those students, because of their age, do not have to wear masks. And so if a student tests positive in a pre-K class, more likely than not, the entire class is going to go home. So some things of that nature. What we're telling people, left and right though, is what the major symptom we're seeing when I talk to Lauren Grivenberg, who's our COVID nurse, who has been nothing short of amazing. The main symptoms we're seeing in kids is we're seeing a stuffy nose and a slight cough or like scratchy throat. Typically, parents, a lot of times, if your kid has a runny nose, you send your kid to school. In this day and time, we are asking parents to please be vigilant and not send a child to school who has a stuffy nose or has a slight cough, because these are things that if you can nip in the bud before they come to school, that helps us not to quarantine as many students. That being said, same as last year, we are not seeing positives from the kids we are quarantining. We are seeing a couple, just like we did last year, but for the most part, the quarantines are working. I know they're frustrating to people. I know, it means people taking off work, but if you go to some of these businesses, they're having to do the same thing with parents. So we're all in the same boat. And I think we're doing a great job. I will tell you, we are talking with our principals every day about having one voice, because it is very frustrating to a parent to hear one thing from one school and another thing from another school. There's no defending that except to say that we are constantly working with our folks to make sure they say the same thing and they follow our guidance. If anyone ever has a question, we tell them to call that one person, and that's our COVID nurse at npsb.la, or you can call the school board and we'll direct you to her. And she is the most consistent. You will get the same answer from her on everything. So we're excited about how good she is at her job and how effective she's been and helpful she's been this year. COVID testing, voluntary COVID testing was supposed to start this week. What got in the way of that was Hurricane Ida. Many of the people who would have been implementing the testing are now being pulled down south for different endeavors down there. I got an update from LSU today saying that they're working on it. They expect it to still happen this month, but the delay is due to Hurricane Ida. Shifting gears from COVID to virtual school, they're a little parallel. We officially ended enrollment, and every day towards the end of that enrollment it went down, so we definitely feel like we got everyone who was interested. We put out multiple texts and emails and all that fun stuff about it. We ended up with 185 students who wanted to be part of the COVID virtual. That's only about 3.5% of our students, but we do feel like those students, those parents were concerned. They were scared for their children's safety, and although we believe our schools are safe, we also want to put parents' fears at ease. So we're excited about that. I do want to pass around to you. This is from Miss Christy Eichel, who I also have to say is doing an amazing job. This is the parent contract that parents sign when they sign up for virtual. With virtual, it's different than regular school. A teacher has control in the classroom and can implement everything they need. In virtual, there is an element of the parents having to kind of be partners with us. She's doing orientations with every family. She's giving this with them. She's talked to most of them many times, and they fully understand their responsibility in this. And what I've explained to her is we let everyone who wanted virtual in virtual. But once virtual starts, that's where this partnership begins. And she has a highly detailed system where if a student does not continue the work, if they don't show up, if they don't do their exercise, their classes and their assignments, then what she does is she places them in a tiered system. Tier 1 is going to be, I'm going to just call your parents. Tier 2, I'm going to set up a plan. Tier 3, so on and so forth. Once they've exhausted all those solutions over the process of 4 weeks, and the student and the parents are not responsive to that system, then we will ask them to come back to face-to-face school, because what we've done is we've done our part and we've done everything we can to make sure they've done their part, and if they can't do that, then we feel as though it's in the best interest of everyone for them to come back face-to-face. And so parents will sign this, and hopefully we won't ever get to this point where we have to bring this up. Social and emotional. Board members, many of you brought this up last board meeting. I want to tell you we had a meeting today. If you've heard, Dr. Brumley is talking about his comeback plan. And that's the statewide initiative to utilize the rest of ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 money. For us, that's over $20 million. That money is highly, has a lot of strings attached to it. And there's also going to be a website that can tell you exactly what we spend our money on, and anyone can access this site, and it's going to have a ton of accountability, which we should have. But I want to let you know that part of that plan is about social and emotional issues. And there's, I've talked to Ms. Ingram, and she has definitely told me that social and emotional there's more of a need there than we've ever had. And I think we all understand why that is. So we are looking at all sorts of things, one of which is expanding our partnership with Dr. Jackson and his trauma-based professional development. Another is possibly putting some contract counselors in every school. Counselors that would not be dealing with guidance department type stuff, but purely dealing on talking to kids and dealing with the issues they have. Now, as far as why is that contract? Because in 2 or 3 years, this money is gone. And so we don't want to create positions that we would not be able to continue. But if we contract with them, we can utilize that for the entirety of the next 2 or 3 years. And so we are looking on that, and I think we have another meeting Tuesday, and we should have some solid plans on exactly, there's about 10 different areas we're putting this money into, but we're going to bring this plan in its completion to y'all at the next board meeting, so you'll fully know where all this money is going, and none of it, I can guarantee you, is going to be wasted. Certified personnel, I'm very excited about this, and I'm not going to make her stand up because she'll just give me all types of heck. But if you recall, we've been in a year like no other, where recruiting and retaining people has been incredibly difficult. Not only that, but we hired instructional specialists. And our instructional specialists, many of them came from the ranks of our teachers. So I think many people would have suspected that we would have had a lower number of certified teachers. But I'm excited to report to you that as it is today, and I know things change daily when it comes to personnel, but as things stand today, we have decreased our uncertified number of teachers by 8.6% in a COVID year, and pulling a large number of them for instructional specialists, 8.6%. And then we also anticipate that that's probably going to decrease another 10% throughout this year because of people who are placed in some positions that they're close to certification. Yes, and I have to tell you, there's 2 ladies who work tirelessly, and I say this all the time, and I'm not fibbing or giving a hyperbole when I say it. I don't know when Miss Page slept last year, and I don't know how Miss Nolly does still have all her fingers left because all she does all day is paperwork. That being said, another piece of this certified personnel that I'm excited about is some of you have expressed concern about just the certified positions, but then also diversity. And so we will be sending Ms. Page to some professional development by February, is it?
April, Chicago.
April in Chicago, where she will not only be trying to recruit people from other parts of the world, which she was very successful in doing when she went to Pittsburgh. She brought back 5 people. But then another piece of this Chicago trip is specifically about cultural diversity in the hiring practices and trying to bring those people that we need that are representative of all of our students to the classroom. So she'll be going, and I think we may send a principal or 2 with her from specific schools. She'll get to pick who. So, but we're very excited about that. But that big thing is the 8.6% decrease in our uncertified people. 2 more things, and then I promise to move on because I know it's one of my longer ones. Apogee, you approved a request to receive bids, but then we found out that we were under the bid price, and so we were able to move ahead with Apogee. There's 2 things with Apogee that I think, one of which is going to excite you more than the other, depending on probably your demographics as far as your age. One is we will have an app, a smartphone app, which I personally am super excited about because this will allow us to engage and communicate with our parents on a much deeper level than we ever have, and not those annoying robocalls that we all can't stand. The other part of this is in order for Apogee to work, we have to create a new website, which we appreciate all the work that's been done on our website, but we recognize that there's a lot that needs to be done. And so in the next 60 to 90 days, you will have a new web-based, and not web-based, I'm sorry, you'll have a new website and you will have a new smartphone app that will roll out, I think, right before Thanksgiving. So we are in the process of doing that. It's going to aesthetically be a lot more pleasing, but it's also going to be a lot more informational, and the stuff you need to find is going to be at your fingertips instead of having to search amongst hundreds of documents. So we're very excited about that. Finally, my last thing is we have a few items that really need more in-depth conversation beyond the 2 hours that we spend here in our board meetings. So I'd like to propose a board retreat, which we could actually have in-house. And if anyone besides us shows up, they're more than welcome to, but it's not going to be super interesting topics. Nothing crazy. So I'd like to propose that we do that between now and the next board meeting. I'm open, I'm throwing out there Friday afternoons if y'all are available, but then we could start a little early, maybe even at lunch, so we could get everyone out of here at a normal time. If y'all want to do a Saturday, I'm all for it, but the 4 items I want to address, board docs, which Ms. Kanika has taught me everything, so I can give y'all a quick little tutorial. We also, Mr. Shirley, Mr. Fred, and Lee have a vision for school food service / maintenance. And I know we've been talking about maintenance a lot and the direction it needs to go. They have a plan, and we want to talk dollars and cents with y'all about where that plan needs to go. We also have some information from Mr. Danny Garrett. He's the lawyer from the School Board Association, and he does the district realignment due to the 10-year census. And so we want to share some stuff with y'all on that and kind of see where y'all want to go with that. And then also, I would love to spend about 30 minutes, no more than 30 minutes, giving you a Reader's Digest / deep dive. I know those are counterintuitive, but a deep dive into our district data as it stands now and where we feel we're positioned to really move and improve that data. So my suggestion, if no one is against it, is possibly the Friday of the 24th, if that's good for the bulk of us.
24th of September.
24th of September, and if we could do maybe an after lunch. I mean, we could start as late as y'all need to, but.
So we'll have to skip leadership package that day. I'm gonna get that day.
Okay, September, Ms. Bell, that works for you? Okay, so September 24th, I can send out an email, and would y'all like to start at lunch? Okay. All right, I'm getting head nods, but I'll send out an email, and if anyone has any issues that come up between now and then. But I was thinking we could do from noon to 4 and probably get a whole lot accomplished. And Ms. Kanika will put out an invite for that because it will be an official board meeting, although it'll be a retreat. So a retreat in here.
So, go ahead.
So going back to that
Yes.
for a second, if you don't mind, will we still have J Campus, or will that encompass all of?
So it'll actually integrate J Campus into it. So it'll be one-stop shopping for all things. So they actually told us that the thing that drives the most traffic to the app is, and this is funny to say, but any parents will know this is the truth, is the school lunch menu. So you'll be able to go get your school lunch menu. You'll be able to look up your students' grades. You'll be able to see if they were absent, all that stuff. But then also you'll be able to indicate, say you have a student at E-Lab and at LP Vaughn. You could have feeds that are specific to each school. You can also, there'll be like a stream that'll tell you the scores from the football game. And there will also be a thing that says, hey, what's my teacher's name? And you go to first grade at Provençal and you'll have their name in there and it'll have their contact number. You can email them. Everything you need to do will be built in there. And so it's going to take about 60 to 90 days to build, but anything and I'm telling this to community, everybody, anything that people really want to see, we want to hear about because we want to do it all in this build.
I'm so excited about that, like super excited. And I'm thinking
I
the
knew you would be.
calendar, the calendar I think will be a huge thing because parents always forget, what day do we get out for pop break or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe that'll be good.
And there'll be like a news feed as well. So
And being user friendly, and one of the things that I'd like to see done, because we talked about it, is these parents and these students who are having struggles with mental stuff, that if they had a bad night, they'll be able to hit it and send it, and a social worker or a counselor know that there's going to be a situation, pull that person to the side and talk with them, you know. And I think that's what has to happen, because many school districts have missed it because the kid is crying out for help. The parents are crying out for help. Teachers are crying out for help with this struggle. And so these are being proactive to get things done. I want to piggyback on some other things that you mentioned. You mentioned about our numbers as far as COVID. We do have contact tracing. Am I right?
Yes, so what happens, and I think there was a parent who called me not too long ago, and their question was, they said, hey, my child was quarantined today, but it says they came into contact 4 days ago. Well, the way I explain that to them is number one, as a parent, my first inclination would be like, oh my gosh, there's incompetency going on, what happened? But when you take into consideration, the contact happened on, say, a Thursday. Then student who's the positive perhaps was out Friday, but just because they weren't feeling that great, they didn't. Nothing was reported to anybody. Well, then you have Saturday, Sunday, Monday. The child goes and decides to have a test. We still, as a school, don't know anything. Child has a test Monday, gets the positive test, then calls the principal. Well, the last day they were there was Friday. So then immediately we jump into action and we say, okay, well, what? So we send that to the parent, and it does look like, okay, well, that happened 4 days ago. But as soon as we get the information, we do the contact tracing. And there's a seriousness with which Ms. Grivenberg does her investigations that I know for some folks, to me, it's reassuring. For some folks, they feel like they're being grilled, but that's exactly what we have to do during this because, unfortunately, dare I say, sometimes been the truth even with some of these things. And so contact tracing happens constantly. She is in constant contact with LDH, with Miss Keisha and or Dr. White and all those folks. But I can assure you, the other thing I tell people is, the other rumor I hear a lot of is, well, in such and such parish, they're not doing this. I can tell you every district is doing that. When you hear of someone not doing it, it's a one-off situation or it's rumor. I talk to these superintendents all the time. It's not that anyone is doing more or less. Everyone's doing the exact same because the main thing here is two things. Number one is keeping students safe, but it's also protecting the district from liability.
Right.
So,
well, Mr. Benefield and Ms. Page, I know this is not a push button, something that you can contact trace. You actually have to do it by calling people.
It's a lead, and
It's
if you follow
over
that
and
lead,
over.
and you follow that lead, and you follow that lead.
And call them back.
That's right.
Sometimes they don't answer. Sometimes they tell you one thing and it's not true.
Right.
Somebody else will rat them out.
Are you sure? And, well, yeah.
and let me tell you too, we're trying to hire a second COVID nurse, but one of the reasons number one, we don't, it's right now recruiting is hard as McDonald's will tell you, because I think they had to shut down for a few days because they didn't have enough employees. Recruiting is hard, but this is a position that you have to have someone who knows the COVID stuff, knows the medical stuff, but then also can be trusted with people's personal information. And so that's not a job we just offer to anyone, and they have to pass Ms. Page's test, and if they do, we put them in there because it's such a sensitive thing.
So
does that,
go ahead.
okay, does that, the COVID nurse contact you have nurses at each school?
Mm-hmm.
And so when something occurs with the situation where there's exposure, you find out that somebody has COVID, and is that nurse from each specific school in contact with the central office COVID nurse?
So here's how it works, is depending on the school, everyone has a different person that's in charge of it. Because the problem with utilizing the nurses just wholesale is the nurses, they have a lot of stuff going on as well. So principals have identified who their contact tracer is. I can tell you, for instance, at eLab, it's their school secretary. And for a lot of places, it's that. So what happens is the information comes in, whether it comes in through a teacher, a principal, whoever, sometimes a student, like, hey, I have a runny nose. And so, all that type of stuff comes in through there. typically you have that point of contact at the school who's dealing with a lot of the stuff, but their first point of contact is going to be Ms. Grivenberg, and they tell her what's going on, and then there's collaboration back and forth. It's like I talked to the principal at eLab today, Ms. Coleman, and she said you should see the email chain that Lauren, her secretary, and herself have, because it's constant communication. So Lauren only comes in with parents a lot of times as an addition to, or when kind of there needs to be backup to explain the situation, or when it's one of those situations where it's just so unusual that we kind of have to have that extra advice. She's the caretaker of all the data, and she is kind of the go-between, but each school has their own initial point of contact as well.
Okay. And I know that there has been great concern because at some of the schools like LP1 and the high school, you had a high incidence of kids in quarantine because of exposure. There's been a lot of concern. The teachers have not felt comfortable. That's the feedback that I'm getting. And they're having, because you have a shortage, they're having to work during their free time, lunchtime, because of the shortage. That's extra stress on the teachers during this time. And so I know it's difficult getting substitutes to come because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we help to fix that situation?
So I'll just be very honest with you. I don't think there's an easy fix for it. I think because I've talked to districts that are throwing money at it, and they found that that's not doing anything. Right now, me and Mr. Watson were talking, and I mentioned McDonald's. I hate to pick on them because I like my McFlurries, but they're offering a $1,000 sign-in bonus to go on to McDonald's. So, yes, I know, I was the same way. I was like, I need to pick up a shift. But we have a labor shortage right now, and the way I've explained it to people is, the minimum amount of requirements that it takes to be in a job is probably a fast food type situation, and if they're struggling, and they'll take people who have or don't have a high school diploma, and we say at the very least you have to have you have to have that high school diploma, and we'd like you to be able to pass a drug screen and all those things, because that's the thing. Trust me, we're not putting anyone out the door. We purely just say, hey, are you able to keep kids safe? And you're willing to come to work. Those are really the two things for substitute teachers, and that's a struggle right now. So I would love to, y'all know I can wax philosophical and I can give you all these grandiose answers, but as it stands right now, there's not a whole lot of answers for me to give you in terms of recruiting substitute teachers. I will say this, schools are going individually to their parents and they're sending emails. Some schools are having success with that, some are not. And I'll tell you the other thing is, Ms. Page and Ms. Nolly have been working just to get our teachers in place and all their background checks. Just now after Labor Day is the traditional time that we start receiving substitute teachers. And so it's going to get better. I just can't tell you that it's going to be a light switch overnight, that it's going to change.
Have predictions, are they still on track for next week? We hit the peak and go down?
So I've been looking at the data, and if you look at the statewide data, it shows actually that we're on the right side of the apex, as they say. I know that sounds weird, but we're on the right side of the curve, and that's great. But the problem we have to realize is on the right side of that curve, we've gone down. That's great, and we're continually going down. But if you look at that right side of that fourth surge, that still puts us at the peak of the third surge. So things are getting better, but and I think they're going to continue because everything we've been told about Delta, and I don't know about y'all, I don't know a whole lot of people who either haven't had the shot or have had COVID, and so it's reaching that point, but we have a ways to go before we're in that situation where we were in May, where it very much felt like we were back to the real. I'll tell you the two things that we tell everyone is masking and vaccinations. Vaccinations, we are not in a position. I saw another district where they were actually making a mandate that they would not require vaccination. We're not mandating anything. We're just encouraging people to follow the data. And right now, if you look at the data, it tells us overwhelmingly that folks who have vaccine are having better outcomes with this. And now, right now, that includes 12-year-olds and above. The 5 to 11 are the ones that I'm worried about, and that's coming soon. But it can't come soon enough. So But Ms. McGaskey, I truly wish, because me and Ms. Page have talked long and hard about this, me and Mr. Wascom have. I'm gonna continue to work on it, I'm gonna continue to talk to other folks, but I always wanna be honest with y'all, and I feel like right now, the best I can tell you is, it's not a great situation, and it's gonna get better, but it's gonna take a little bit of work and time, I think.
Because we are gonna have surges up and down, because just like coming back, got kids coming back, so the attendance is gonna go up, and then in a few days, if you got some coming back being exposed and all of that along the way, because you actually have a lot of people that are not gonna get vaccinated. And then they're coming, the kids are coming from into the community, bringing it into the schools. The buses are congested, they're bringing it into the schools, you have contact sports going on, so you're gonna have service up and down. And people actually don't, you have people that just don't wanna believe the figures. And I truly do hope that everybody involved with putting the information in is giving us factual information, because that's what I'm telling folks, and we're looking at our parish individually, and I know you have to do comparisons and all of that, but,
No, I mean, we live where we live, and,
Yeah.
and it's great to say, hey, we're the same as Rapides, but we're not living in Rapides. So I agree with you. I think, I think it's important to put everything in context, and so what I'm happy about is I'm happy that the folks who were the most fearful of everything were given the option to go virtual, and I feel like we're giving them a much more robust version of virtual than we ever did last year. I think they're gonna be happy with it. I think we're gonna be happier with it because they're gonna meet us halfway. And I think the folks who are deciding to still send their students to school understand what COVID is, but also believe in our mitigation efforts. But I can tell you, this is all we do all day is COVID. We take it as serious as anyone does, and we're going to continue to take it seriously, and we're going to continue to give y'all all the information so you feel knowledgeable, so you can talk to folks whenever you need to. And please don't ever hesitate to give me a call, and I'll vouch for any number, and because Miss Grivenberg keeps all of her data, and if we ever make a mistake, it's just that, it's a mistake, it's never intentional. And I can tell you, the first week I put out the information, I send it to y'all, and I send it to principals before it goes out to the community. And I do that because the first week we did it, Miss Armitrius Williams over at Weaver, she said, hey, you got my numbers wrong. And I said, where did? And we figured it out, she fixed it, and we fixed it moving forward. So, not saying we can't make mistakes, but when we find them, we're gonna correct them.
And in reference to virtual, I know open up for the elementary age kids.
Yes, ma'am.
And so is it open for elementary?
Yes, ma'am.
High-
K
high
through 12.
school, if they meet the criteria?
No, ma'am, we opened it for everyone.
Just wide open.
Yeah, now the registration period is closed, because just to give you all an idea, in order to do this, we had to go through a company, Edmentum and Edgenuity, and so it's not like we're putting a timetable on it just for fun. We have to do it so we know the number of kids who are in it, so we can get the PO to the company, and we can do all that, and then we need them to stay in it for at least this first semester, because we've paid that money to that company. It's a subscription type thing. So that's the only reason that we're persnickety about going in and out of it.
So I was questioning just before I got here that there were maybe a few seniors who, because of the uptick of COVID, wanted to go into virtual, and were told that you can't go into virtual unless you're willing to graduate virtual. So that should not be accurate. The only students who were told that they may not want to go virtual, and I actually told a mom who works up here this, is we cannot, if they're taking face-to-face dual enrollment classes, we can't facilitate that in the virtual, because it's not our thing. Okay.
And so we told them, if you want to stay in that dual enrollment class, you need to stay face-to-face, and that's purely because we have no ability to do that. So
And some of them AP classes or something like that.
if they're taking AP, they're already in the virtual academy.
Okay.
So the only one would be dual enrollment, and I wish we could, but that's an NSU thing in what they offer. So.
All right. Any other questions, concerns? All right.
Y'all make me study hard for these.
old business.
I would, David Staney presented to me, well, I gave a printed out copy to each of y'all. Did not make the agenda for today, but would like to ask that we add this to the old business. Dave and Joe, David, I'm sorry, brother. Joe Staney is here to talk about, this is their response from their attorneys back to us. And so I'd like to bring Joe to talk about, but and before I do that, do we have to add this to the agenda or?
No, you can,
Just
on
old
the old
business.
business, they can,
So Joe?
but now, come Thursday, it'll be added to the.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. The attorneys for the Fire District 1 have submitted some proposed revisions which are before you in the revised cooperative endeavor agreement. And some of the changes are benign in terms of the impact it would have on the school board itself, but some of them do represent a change in terms of the original vision, if you will, plan of action which the school board had for the property. The reasoning behind the proposed changes is, in essence, the Fire District number 1 has talked to their bankers, their financial folks, and they're saying that because of some of the requirements that we set forth in the original cooperative endeavor agreement, they cannot obtain financing if indeed all of these provisions as originally proposed are included. Secondly, their legal counsel have told them that to include some of these original provisions, it would create some problems with their legal liability, which they would not be in a good position to limit. So based on those two primary concerns, they proposed these revisions, which are before you. What they have indicated they would be prepared to do is act in a good faith manner to try to still accommodate the ultimate goals that were originally included in the prior cooperative endeavor agreement proposal that was submitted to the board. At this point in time, however, they just simply cannot agree as the original document included. And the only other thing, there was also one of the entities that originally indicated that they wanted to have a location at the property, one of these satellite operations through the Natchitoches Parish Hospital. They do not want to be included in the agreement by specific representation, although they represent to Fire District number 1 that they are still open-minded about having some facility, some representative based at the facility, either through ambulance services or potentially in the long run, possibly even as a satellite facility that would provide some kind of limited health care. So these are the changes. The benefit for us, and what I recommend that we agree, give serious consideration to authorizing the board president, Dr. Eloy, to approve this and work with me to get the final language as I continue to work with their attorneys, is because of the problem that has occurred with theft and vandalism at the school. It's simply shocking and sad about the criminal activity that's occurred at school property at Plesierville. And because of that, we're at a tipping point in terms of how much more can occur, and the property still is going to be of interest to someone to go ahead and occupy at some point in time. And because at the end of the day, they will be responsible going forward with any renovation costs and improvements. So that's kind of part of the challenge as it relates to our bargaining position, if you want to use that terminology. I don't think it's a good idea for us to continue to have this property under our ultimate legal responsibility. One of the main reasons the board looked for someone to come along to take over ownership, rather than just have it deemed to be condemned and literally pay close to $500,000 to tear it down, let alone look at any potential additional rehabilitation or renovation type costs from a standpoint of having to deal with certain substances that would have to be paid to be remediated, is because of the exorbitant cost. And so we don't want to be in the business of having to deal with that from a financial standpoint, nor do we want to be in the business of having a piece of property on our hands for which there is unfortunate vandalism going on, let alone potential theoretical legal liability in the event someone should get hurt on property that we are not actively having someone present to police and to protect against intruders. So to me, it's a liability, either way you look at it. We need it occupied if we're going to have anything to do with it. They have held up on agreeing to it because of some of these concerns that they have, in which they've set forth in the revised or proposed revisions to the CEA. So with that in mind, I would ask for your guidance and instructions on how to proceed. It would be my recommendation that you continue to authorize us, as you had previously done so, to allow us to work with the superintendent and the president of the board to try to work the best deal we can and enter into an agreement and get this property moved from our responsibility to the third party, being the Fire District 1. Any questions regarding that?
Is it still in here where the school buses can use the parking lot to turn around for those reading?
That would still be authorized. They understand that's a deal breaker for us.
Because that's the biggest issue
It is.
with most of the people down there, with the bus drivers and the parents, that they could have a place that they can
No,
turn around.
they're okay with that.
That's fine with me.
That's an external matter, and they're not as concerned about that. That will not affect their financing, and they don't think that would affect their ability to create or limit their potential exposure. After all, in the event, God forbid, something should ever occur, that would technically be on our responsibility if one of our bus drivers had an accident or whatever on that property. Doesn't matter where the incident would occur, ultimately that would still be back on our bus driver's responsibility, or our contractor's responsibility, I should say.
Mr. Stein.
Yes, sir.
I realize this is a ridiculous question to ask an attorney, but what's our timetable here?
So if we approve this, all these revisions, they're gonna greenlight it, is what they've told me.
We need to learn or understand what we can live with, what we can't live with, and move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we need to go home, look at this, and say what we can do and what we can't, because we need to get rid of this problem.
Amen.
Because it's costing us a whole lot right now.
But it's certainly causing us to have continued risk that we don't want.
I'd like to inject into this, the condition of the property is deteriorating at great length speed because they're going in with four-wheelers, they're stripping out the copper, and they're going in with four-wheelers and tearing up the gym floor. This is, we need to get this resolved as soon as possible.
There's no lights or anything on, right?
No, there are no lights.
Yeah, because we don't want nobody electrocuted.
absolutely not.
The meters have been pulled, but this is it's at some point in time here, this will be left for us to demo if we don't get it.
Did we not keep cameras rolling, Mr. Wascom, down there?
Keep what now?
Cameras? I thought
Yes,
we-
that all got taken and stolen.
Okay,
They stole the recorder, so all of our recordings went with it.
all right. So that takes care of that, okay.
And then we disconnected electricity shortly after that.
It wasn't nailed down, it's being, it's a subject that somebody's wanting. Any other questions?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Were we keeping the acreage that goes with it, or is that within the agreement that they get the building and all the acreage?
No, the acreage would go with it, subject to your final approval, of course. But part of the reason it benefits the fire district is because they can use the acreage surrounding the facility for purposes of training and their training that would occur outside of the facility itself. And that's just as important to them, to be candid with you. However, we retain any mineral rights that
I
might
did see that.
be of interest and value to us.
Okay.
There's not a lot of acreage around the building.
It's 13 acres.
It's
13 acres around?
Yes.
It's not a lot to sell, it's a lot to move.
Guaranteed. The maintenance is certainly an exposure of itself.
We're keeping mineral rights.
Absolutely. Any other questions or comments at this time? I appreciate that. One other thing, while I have the opportunity to visit with you, with regard to an update on the parking lot for our bus transportation hub or terminal, we worked with the engineer, Mr. Versweivel, and representatives of Regional, along with some of our neighborhood representatives, if you will, to ensure that everybody's still working together to get this resolved as soon as possible. We've got some amended cost items that have come in, and we have got those being evaluated. And we are working on getting some of the final fence issues and setbacks approved through some zoning matters, but we see a green light coming around the corner for that, and hopefully get that project wrapped up. Any other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Kenny.
Thank y'all very much.
One other matter, the Head Start building. We are currently in negotiations and talking with the city to see if the city would also be interested as a potential, as well as John Winston's group has yet to make their final proposal to us, but that is also ongoing. I've shown it about 10 times this last 30 days, so to just have them all take a look at it. So I'm hopeful on both properties.
Did they do more at the location on MLK?
Yeah, because
Historic.
that's an eyesore, they need to hurry do something about that.
Not only that, it's a danger of all the kids who are in there. It's a danger to, it's just a danger to those kids.
Yeah, I'm keep getting called about that.
So. Okay.
All right, you all have a consent agenda.
If y'all recall, Reverend Harris, or President Harris, we had made out-of-state travel something I approved unless there was money tied to it, and so that's why those two, there's money tied to that, and that's something y'all done, I think, year in and year out, so just wanted to make
We
sure.
good.
And they've represented us very well, so hey.
Yes, sir.
All right, A, receiving transportation report.
Police walk.
Hello, everybody. I'm just giving an update. As of right now, we're doing good with recruiting. We have 2 people go this weekend to get their third-party testing, and once they pass testing, then they will actually take on a route. We have 2 people in class that's trying to get their permit, so they have like maybe 1 or 2 more tests to take, but they actually before they can start doing the actual driving onboarding. So as of right now, we're looking good as far as recruiting and getting all our routes covered and helping with the crowding on the buses and everything.
Thank you so much, Ms. Felicia. I called Mr. Eugene, and he called me, and I called you all, and you all took care of that thing so quick, fast, and in a hurry. And I'm telling you, the person that was involved was so peacock happy.
You know, and that's our thing, you know, if there is an issue and, you know, just call me, and, you know, all I can do is address it.
Right.
And hopefully everything goes smooth, but, so far everybody's, they just need a voice to you know, somebody
That's
just
right.
to hear from, you know, show some concern. And actually I am concerned, I'm learning, so, I was just really glad that everything worked out the way it did.
Right. Wonderful job.
I know that you all experiencing longer routes because of the shortage of have the routes been cut down some, like second routes, and some of it was 2 or 3 hours before they would finish?
What we
Because of
did,
the shortage?
we had one route that ended up actually finishing like 7 o'clock by the time he got back to the yard. So we got another, and that's because it's most of the rural areas that they have to go out, and when new students come on this particular route, a student came on to his route, and it was like an extra 20 minutes to that one child and then 20 minutes back for him to finish. So it added a lot of time, but we were able to get another bus driver to help him out. So he still gets back later than the rest of them, but it's like an hour cut off his time. So we're actually working on it. And even in the mornings, trying to get the students to school at a good time so they can receive breakfast and everything. So actually this morning I went on a route just to see what I can do to help, you know, take some time off this morning. So I'm actually going out, you know, when they come with a problem or just a situation in general. So we are taking each one individually and looking at it and just being creative, trying to come up with ways to reduce time on routes and everything.
And you appreciate it. I've heard some really good positive comments that you're really employee oriented, and that's appreciated for that company. And I know there was concern because with COVID going on, crowded situation on the buses.
Yeah, what we're doing is, everybody's giving me their seating chart. So I have it, at my desk, so, the COVID nurse and I, we keep in contact. If she calls and asks for, give me a name and who sat beside them, I have it right there, and I'm able to give her information out back, you know, just, for whatever I have, you know, just to help her so we can get all the kids, if they were quarantined or exposed, that we can get them isolated and, so they won't, have the whole bus contaminated.
Thank you so very much for your assistance.
Oh, thank you. Anything else? Okay, you guys have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, receive budget update, Mr. Wascom.
I don't know how to do this, we've gone digital now. I don't know how to do all this, I'm trying to figure it out. All right. My first experience with this. Okay, the budget. Now there's two types of budget. There's gonna be the yearly budget that we'll present later. This is that budget, if you open up that attachment. I am going to start presenting, in talks with Jay Sheffield this afternoon, as well as with the auditors. It would be best if we present to you guys in September, the July board meeting. It gives us a month to finish reconciliations, to have a chance to start posting our receivables. I am unhappy, as I've expressed in the past with what I'm presenting to y'all, is it not being an accurate representation of what's going on financially. So we would like to ask, the accounting department and I would like to ask that we present to y'all the July and September, and then the October board meeting will present the August. It basically gives us a month and a week to do the bank reconciliation, to post all our receivables. We don't even know what our receivables are until the 15th of the month. And it matters, because it greatly and significantly impacts our finances. So this is our July our July budget balance report. And it shows a pretty significant increase, in revenue over expenses. And then in child nutrition, it shows a positive. And here's the interesting part, and this is what I mean. If you go to the second page, under Title I, it shows 0 revenues. But that's never going to be the case. Whatever the expenses are, which in this time are $66,533, just means these revenues weren't posted yet. Even at the time of this report, which was prepared, I think, Friday afternoon. So it just hasn't been posted yet, even with a month and a week waiting. So we will, but in the future, we plan on fixing this and having our receivables posted, so you guys have a much more substantial, a financial statement that actually more accurately reflects what we're trying to, do, so you can manage better. To give you an example, the June 30, as it stands today, is currently in a positive. It's $1,390,000 today. That is likely to go up a little bit more as we post more interest on bonds and different other things. The year of June 30 still hasn't been closed out, but we're looking at probably ending at about 1.5 now, with more information that's come in, additional expenses that have come in. So we're looking good. It'll be, I would estimate, somewhere around between 1.4 and 1.5. But if you'll remember, at my balanced budget report in July that I presented, it was showing a loss of $900,000. It went up to as high as 1.4 loss. It's now going to end at 1.5 positive. That's $3 million range. And we need to have a more accurate reporting system. So I've spoke at length today with the auditors, and as well as our internal auditor, which is Jay Sheffield Group, and we're going to present this. And so we're going to be a month behind than what y'all are used to, but I think it'll be a much more accurate tool.
And Mr. Walson, you and Mr. Harris, are also visiting a neighboring parish that uses the same software as us, correct?
Yes, and also seeing if we can get to gain some better advantages. When y'all ask me, well, where does it look like we're gonna end for the year? I'm showing a loss of 900,000. It isn't true yet because not all the revenues have been reported exactly and not everything's come in, and June is one of the hardest months to get them out. So I want to give you guys a true understanding as to where I think it'll be. And we are difficult, as I was listening to the auditors today, we're difficult because our revenues are always flexing with property taxes and sales taxes going up. We don't just issue a student count and that's our revenue for the year like some other governmental agencies. Our school board is a little bit more difficult to make sure because we have several sources of revenue. So, I'm going to start implementing these changes. I hope y'all like them. Our goal is by our November board meeting, your September, your first quarter financial will be pretty much dead accurate. And I hope this improves the quality of reporting that goes on here.
Well, it makes more sense.
What's that?
It makes more financial sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's my budget balance report. It is for July. I'm still not happy with how it is yet, but we will get all that fixed.
Fix it and report it to us. All right, receive tax commission report.
Well, we're still showing a 20% growth.
That's awesome. We ought to have some more.
Yes, sir.
That's good.
We're still showing 20% growth. If you go to actually the last page, you're always looking for the sales tax distribution. That's what they actually distribute to us, not collections. Collections is what they may collect, but they may have some refunds or some different other things that go on. So you're looking at the number for distribution, which is the very last page, and it's a 20.42% increase over last year. And you remember last year was kind of high too. So we're not only we're beating last year, so it's a pretty significant. It's very easy to beat a year for 12 months, but then to beat your best year ever it's even harder. So we're actually still doing very well. I will tell you that the big budget that I presented to you for the yearly budget has an estimated of average 10% increase. That may very well change, and I suspect it will. But I just wanted to be conservative on revenue and a little over abundant on expenses and give y'all what I feel like is a fair report. Okay?
Motels should be collecting a whole lot of money now.
Yeah, particularly all the people staying up here from running away from Hurricane Ida. Yes.
Yeah.
Because all that money Mike Stewart dropped on us.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes, sir.
I know this is off topic, but can you give us a 2-minute synopsis of how the proposed centralized tax collection is going?
Yes, we did go to that. Actually, this will not impact our tax commission office at all. Right now, to summarize this, we actually now support it wholeheartedly after hearing it. It's basically, you're going to go to the state, you will tell them this is what your total sales tax are, and it will say how much is for the state. You will tell them which parishes you sold in, and even within, like if you're in the city of Natchitoches, you will actually distinguish all that. It'll be one report. They will take all the money out of your account, but they will only send to the state portion. They will send to Jerry McWhorter his portion. They will send to other parishes. Some people operate multiple parishes. Right now, you have to go to the state for the whole state, and then you have to go to each individual parish site. This will be to one site. But people were nervous that all this money would actually arrive in Baton Rouge and we'd have to wait, and there'd be some sort of collection fee added on as time went on. None of the money never hits the state account. It basically is collected and then is distributed straight to our checking account or to Jerry McWhorter's checking
Should have
account.
done that 2 years ago before Amazon was closed. Natchitoches Parish would be in much better shape. Mr. Danzy is talking about that constantly. You
Well, I will-
look
I will
on
tell
the
you.
invoice, all you see is state out.
Mississippi went from $100 million in collections and went up to $450 million in collections just by making
That's
this
what
one
they
move.
say.
So, and I'm sorry to interrupt, Ms. Broadway, were you trying to ask a question?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, and this may have actually been better asked under old business, but, this conversation kind of did remind me about, Mr. Wascom's, plan to kind of delve more into the land that we own throughout the parish and then, potential, better management of that land. Is, there a time we could squeeze in a little bit of a report on that?
Yes,
On the
ma'am,
progress there?
I'm getting ready to report to you my recommendation. It addresses that very issue where it says about proposed idea of a realtor.
Oh, okay.
That we can discuss that at length there, because that is what I'm looking to do, is ask the board under, I've got the state law, this paragraph F, of hiring a realtor, and it sets the percentage, and it's only a 6-month contract at a time, and we'd have to renew that contract 6 months at a time, but it would be managing that, the property. Somebody out there would actually go and take it and look it all up and tell us which properties are worthwhile. Now, obviously, Section 16 property can't be sold off without a vote of the people.
So we're proposing to send out bids for a realtor to come in and manage that.
No, I was actually just looking to hire one realtor with that contract, and if things went well, we don't necessarily have to send out bids to select a realtor because the percentage is set already in place. They're not going to be able to discount their services unless you think that's what you would like to do.
Yeah,
So-
that's what I'd like to do.
Mr. Watson, what about the hunting lease stuff that we talked about, starting back on that? Is there something that maybe when we have our retreat, that we can bring that up and add that to it?
Yeah, I think
Because there's thousands of acres out there and people are wanting to lease this for hunting purposes and stuff, so maybe we can.
I got mired down in the idea of taking each piece of property and putting a lease bid on each piece of property, because we have lots of properties, and then it gets mired down, it becomes more than I can handle.
Yeah.
Because I'd literally be coming here for every single piece and everybody bidding on each particular lease. It would be more, and it is allowed by the law to have one person manage all of it for us, but we just have to trust that the rate he asked for, there's a lot of things in that.
If we could, I'd like
Thank
that
you
to
for
be
that.
put on
And I look forward to hearing your update
retreat.
later on in the
So we can.
They
meeting.
want to put the property management under the retreat deal, so.
So we can.
Okay, we can table it for now, sure. Well, I'm sorry, but Beverly, we just tabled it. We're about to.
No, we didn't.
That's perfectly fine.
You got it on the
discussion,
Yeah.
I believe, not take it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, you just wanted further discussion of property
I
management.
don't never want to stop no progress, because progress is what we doing.
Lee has it on the agenda for us to vote on Thursday night. So if that's the case, the retreat is after.
That's why I said that we're essentially tabling
So we're gonna have
it.
to postpone.
We can still discuss it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I have it on the agenda to vote for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Boston.
Before you go, I am in communication with Ms. Palmer, and she is wanting to know information on the new trucks that were
It's
purchased.
gonna be on the next.
Maintenance report's about to step up and address that.
Okay.
Are we ready for maintenance report?
Yeah.
Good evening, how are y'all? Pretty good. Actually, that's one of my main agendas, not the only one I really wanted to report on. We have acquired 2 new trucks for the maintenance department, one of them which is the truck that I drive, which was never a truck for that position. The other new truck is a new work truck that was given to the foreman. His truck was passed down to a member of the department that does not have a truck. Also in the near future, we have 2 old trucks, which are 1997 models, which are old and they're on their last leg. We'll be looking to purchase those in the near future. And that's really and truly about the only thing that I had on my report that I wanted to talk about. So, what's the question she would like me to answer?
Oh, she's very specific in her questioning. It's a lot here. She asked, did we have any later model trucks in storage? And if so, why weren't those trucks being utilized?
No, ma'am, we did not. We did not have any extra. We actually have 7 people and we had 5 trucks. So we purchased those 2 new trucks so everyone would have one and we had more coverage of the parish. Right now, if I have 2 gentlemen riding in one truck to go fix a light bulb, that's very inefficient. So I know it's a little bit more of an expense and it's a one-time cost, but that allows more people to go and do in different areas and not be bound to one vehicle.
So Reverend Harris and I spoke about this because I think it's one of those things. Obviously, a truck is a big purchase. It's through the TIPS contract, which by law, and Reverend Harris and I had a good discussion about this. By law, that is allowable if it's under $30,000 and not bring it to the board. But in practice, we do believe with purchases like that we should probably give y'all a heads up, just so there's no discrepancy on that.
It's actually a state contract.
Yes,
sorry. Let me talk about that. Even under state contract, if you all remember, the last trucks that we bought under the former CFO, it came before the board. We approved that. And so that's the only thing I want to make sure is that even on state contract, and it may not be that because normally it's a $30,000 and above that it must come before the board. But just for safekeeping for all these board members who get questioned, because that's what happened. One of the board members came to me and I said, that is not true. That didn't happen that way. And Mr. Waskin, we just were in conversation. So it wasn't something that he was trying to hide from me, because we were just in conversation. And he told me, I said, and he know what my conversation was about it. So, but I just want to make sure that we always try to do things transparent. And again, wasn't nothing that none of them were trying to do, because it wouldn't have came up in the conversation like it did come up, you know. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we're
cool. We got a.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
All of the equipment that school food service is ordered, I see some of this is getting, and some of the things are starting to be installed. Is all that going smoothly? Is there any issues, or do we have to stop what we're doing in certain schools?
Well, actually, everything is going smooth. We actually had one issue. We had one issue with a freezer that wrong door was shipped with it. Other than that, it's been replaced. The main thing that we've had is Ms. Hicks has worked with them on extra room in certain refrigerators, where they've actually brought a couple of refrigerators and freezers to sites to store those food while they're being put in. But other than that, I mean, that one door is the only real issue that I've seen so far that we've run into.
That's great, because that was a tremendous amount of material.
Oh, it is, and look, some of them, as big as they are, they haven't put in a week. And that's pretty impressive for them to tear that down and put the new stuff in a week.
That's right.
Yeah, it's going great.
Anything else?
The truck that you bought for yourself, that's for you to take home, or do it stay at the warehouse?
Actually, right now, I have been taking it home.
Did any of the other maintenance guys have a vehicle to go back and forth to the
Yes,
house?
sir.
Any other?
Right, Ms. Palmer is also asking, are there any other trucks, just sitting up, in storage anywhere?
No, ma'am. The only trucks we have are 7 trucks, and they are being utilized by 7 individuals.
2 or 3 of them are the 1997 models,
1997.
and their life expectancy isn't much longer.
But currently, they are still being used.
What was it?
97 already, wow.
They are,
If it's running like it's supposed to run.
they're pretty.
Shoot, if a work truck, a 97 work truck, if it's still running, it's doing good.
Yeah. Two engines and 2 transmissions in it.
Well, thank y'all very much for keeping that truck that long.
Yeah.
You got your money's worth out of it.
It's done very well.
But that's awesome to have some new vehicles in the fleet to make it more efficient, where you can get to and fro safer and quicker, I'm sure.
Right, and we are also, we're going with the new logo on our vehicles. So soon you will be seeing them with the new logo on them, which I'm excited about. They actually
And all those also, just so y'all know, we instituted, I think before, Mr. Shirley came, but they all have GPS trackers on them.
Yeah, correct.
So-
Yeah, now the trucks y'all getting, they coming with all the bins and all that on it.
His director, it felt like in discussions with him that it would be best just to buy him a standard,
It's 1,500.
1,500, the Dodge, on contract Dodge truck. He has since put a toolbox in the back, but he's just driving to jobs. And, but the other truck was a actual utility truck with all the boxes on the side and the whole
It
thing.
has all the job boxes on the side. It's a 2,500 Dodge, so it's a good truck.
I will tell you this, it's hard to find these trucks, so when you have them,
Yeah.
but they're on, we bought them on state contract, and it's at Landers Dodge. And one of the reasons we use them is they have them available. It was almost Ford, I don't think at the time, had
It's
anything.
32 weeks. We'd be able to get a box truck like one we bought for our Ford in 32 weeks through Ford.
I have one comment, Reverend Harris. Maintenance department as a whole, the best way I see it has improved a lot just in the last several months. Very much so.
Absolutely.
And in every scope. And it's amazing how, like Mr. Benfield was talking about, all the equipment and stuff that's coming
Right.
and stuff. And I was up at Fairview and Lakeview and all that the other day, and it's just great. So doing a good job, man.
Well, and that's a large part of that conversation we want to have on the retreat is about, okay, we got to here, but how do we make the next step? I'm sorry, Ms. McGaskey, you were next.
Let me finish. And I do applaud, job well done. But there was some concern, and I had spoke with Ms. Tankia about it. Over on Coombe Street, around the school, it really looks bad unless some work has been done with trash and tree limbs and the bushes on the campus around there, overgrown.
That has already been contracted out. We started the process, and unfortunately, we ran into yellow jacket nest.
How many times did you get
I'm
stung,
so
Mr. Sherman?
I got stung 21
sorry
times.
for what they did to you.
Yeah, I got stung 21 times before I could get them off the man that was working with me.
God.
But we kind of ceased that. We've went in there 3 different times and found 3 different nests. So we're continuing to keel, back up, keel, because it could have been, if I'd have been allergic, or the man that was with me would have been allergic, it could have been real bad.
But if you notice, actually their work is exposing some of, they got rid of all that stuff on the fence, which is exposing all the stuff from the hurricane, so.
Yeah, and all that
It's
is
a
in
process.
contracts being taken care of. We just stop the process until we can rid the area of all of our unfriendly friends and get back started. So.
Okay.
So we're getting rid of all that fencing right up next to Coombe Street.
Okay.
All that fencing is, we're going to, all this fencing that has barbed wire on it and everything, we're gonna take all that out. And there's gonna be, we're gonna do a shortcut where the vast majority of the fence, it'll just be open field. We're gonna start actually taking some of the trees down and open it up. So they'll actually mow it and keep up with it. It's sort of a plan to fix this, but it looks awful.
Yes.
All those bushes where the buses driving right next to it actually rubs the buses as they drive through it. All those shrubs are all be yanked out. It'll be significantly different looking here shortly.
Thank you all for that. Any other question I asked earlier in reference to the mowing at the MLK Head Start site? If that can be done, because if it hasn't been done, it's an eyesore. We
It
have
is. It is, we can have that done.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
We was kinda in the process, and we kinda, same thing
Let's not
stopped.
call it mowing, it's bush hogging.
Bush hogging.
Bush hogging,
Yes.
whatever you wanna call it.
We will take that.
Let me compliment you one more time. I went to Walmart and saw that system that you were talking about. And they were sharing with me how you take your badge and you put it and get whatever out and things like that. Listen, if we can get to that system,
I have compiled a list for them, so they're working on getting us the setups the way we want them, trying to figure out where we want to put them, the price list, everything it's in process. It's gonna take a while. It's not something that it's just gonna be a couple of months. It's gonna be probably another 6 months before we get them fully installed. But I'm hoping that by the beginning of the year we'll start seeing them maybe in the warehouse, and we may get a couple of outlying schools. But before it's totally up and running, I figure it'd be another at least 6 months.
But we did decide to go with Fastenal, right?
Yes, we are going.
Yeah, it's at the bottom of the report. So, with that, what do you do for historical data to set your max mins?
Right now, I have no doubt.
Okay.
I'm making my own as I go. That's kind of the reason it's taking so long, is because I can't, number one, with as many schools as we have, none of the lights are the same, none of the toilets are the same. We cannot just go in and get one item for, say, a toilet valve to repair all these schools, because some have automatic flush, some have the manual flush. So I'm basically having to go to that school and go completely through from one end to the other, exactly what kind of light bulbs they have, what kind of toilets they use. That's the reason I say it's going to at least be another 6 months, because I'm basically having to set each individual school up as an individual school, because everything's so much different.
Mr. Shirley, when you hit the ground running and you kept going, we appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am, and I'm going to continue to go until he puts the brakes on me.
Before we let you go, Tankia, Ms. Palmer, has an additional question regarding the trees around the NJH track. Would that be taken care of?
Now, that we haven't discussed yet. That is on the docket. We actually started kind of a preliminary discussion about it today, but we haven't got into the weeds per se on that.
Those are the ones that are putting the pine needles on the tracks? Yeah.
It's gonna take a significant amount of tree removal.
Yeah.
It's not just the trees.
I remember Ms. Tankia brought it up about,
months ago.
Yeah.
Well, that's something she's saying that we make it hardest?
No, remember she originally asked that, but the problem was it's too small of a track, but remember it was also the discussion about the hogs, the wild hogs?
Yes.
But the pine needles actually can stain the track, right? Because they're acidic?
The acidic nature will actually ruin the track.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have any pulpwood anymore?
No,
They don't have no more
unfortunately,
pulpwood.
no. Wish they did.
If we had some pulpwood, that would be a small enough track.
I have any other questions? All right, you have a good day.
I'd like to give a little bit of an update real quick, since it's maintenance on Natchez Junior High. We have ordered new student desks, new teacher's desk. We've ordered a walk-through metal detector. We have
Thermal scanner.
Thermal scanner. We also have new wands. The gym floor has been redone. If you haven't seen it yet, it's worth seeing.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful. We're working on, with the engineers, to determine the dome and the damage from the hurricane. We're working on all that. We'll be presenting a bid on that shortly.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
would this be a good time, because I know we didn't put it as an agenda item, but since you're on maintenance, to bring up the discussion of the insurance?
Yes. An ongoing frustration of mine is that the insurance Sedgwick opinion was only a Cat 2 hurricane hits the parish of Natchez, and there's only $98,666 worth of damage. This is truly unacceptable. So we're moving forward with another option. We took a look at Grant Parish. They had a gentleman who is currently the president of the Independent Adjusters.
Insurance Adjusters.
Insurance Adjusters Association.
We've been talking to Grant Parish, the superintendent there. I think their original, after the hurricane.
Their Sedgwick bid was 3.8 million.
And this group who kind of knows the ins and outs of insurance, and we would want to kind of put it out there with some different folks, they've gotten that bid from, or the insurance payment from 3 million to 35 million. In early discussions with them, they're thinking our 98,000 could be as high as 12 million. And so we would like to possibly pursue some alternatives in terms of the insurance.
And the great thing is they are, if their payment, the insurance payment would pay for their services to conduct this engineering. So just want to let you know, it's really at no cost to us because the money would show up. And it's interesting discussions because they said at Grand Parish it went from 3.8 million to 23 million, as high as 40 million, came down to about mid-30s.
And just so y'all know, I did some due diligence on the group, because I think there's probably some other groups out there that do this, but I specifically want to know about this group, because when someone tells you they go from 3 million to 35 million, but I personally have had numerous conversations with Paxton Tedley, the superintendent of Grant Parish, and where they were, which was they were at the point of having to shut down schools and insolvent and major issues to now possibly, being able to fix everything and then some, so to speak. We at least want to, do our due diligence on partnering with this entity.
So is there gonna be some litigation between, that's daylight and dark between those two figures?
What they do is they basically get a judge who kind of acts as a mediator.
They basically told us too, you want to avoid the litigation. You want to, I can't remember the exact term, but it's almost like a mediate. You probably know.
Right. Well, I wanted to tell you, when you said the name Sedgwick, automatically the hair on my back stands up because they are horrible.
Mm-hmm.
They are absolutely horrible, and every client that I've had to deal with them, I go ahead and suggest litigation. They are absolutely horrible, so you actually do need to file a complaint with the Department of Insurance when you have a moment to spare.
So, but the exciting thing is, again, Lee and I talked when they told us 3 to 35. I was like, I feel like I'm being sold something. But that was my words. But then to do the due diligence and know that there really is that type of massive gap. So the good news is we could possibly be seeing millions of dollars.
I'm glad you all did bring this up today, so that we would know.
That's incredible.
So we want to move forward now. He said, did you make a claim for the winter storm? The answer was no, because of a two category hit, and they said there's nothing they owe you. Then a small winter storm, which basically damaged just around the 80,000 mark. I didn't even bother. He said, well, no, let's go ahead and file that claim and get that moving as well. So it's going to be, they will be used as we need to represent us in my discussions with it. I'm talking to an insurance, and it's not like when you have your car from hail damage type of adjuster thing. It's a much more significant and broader in scope and a lot more moving parts. So we will, yes, and we've heard similar stories. Apparently most of the school systems in the state of Louisiana had Sedgwick, and one of the reasons they're acting this way is because when the storm came in, it damaged so many buildings that they just wanted to tell everybody, we can't, because they're hurting. So I don't care.
And ultimately, the insurance will pay that, so that won't be an expense at all.
That's the reason they reassured.
Right.
They got reassurance.
So that's where I will keep y'all in touch.
Mr. Reba always perks up when we talk about insurance.
I know, it makes me excited. But sad when you say Sedgwick, because I know exactly where you're going with that.
Ms. Page, was she in?
She was.
All right.
There she is.
Come on, Ms. Page.
I just want to say that the part that Dr. Eloy left off was, we have this thing that we do. I set up the interviews and he closes. When we know that there's going to be a certified person in the building, I will text him and say, are you in the building?
So, and I actually told him 8.6%, but as of this afternoon, it's already gone up to about 9%.
Exactly. Our persistent pursuit of progress is so obvious. I promise you, in spite of all that's going on, the recruiting is not where we want it to be, but it is so much easier the people have heard about what's going on in Athens. So I just look forward to it getting better and better and better. Our board is different. I don't have to sit here and try to blow smoke. Our board is different. We have a new superintendent. The people that we have, the staff that we have now is just, we've not had this team in a long time, or a team like this in a long time. So again, I'm going to ask you that you just continue supporting us in our efforts and our decisions here. It makes quite the difference. So if you look at your report, if you have any questions or comments, welcome those at this time. That's what I love.
Good job.
Very well.
Great job.
The school food service report, Ms. Hicks is at the volleyball game.
Okay.
And so we
Well, no, I do have one update for her.
We've let Mr.
She
Loscom.
said everything's fine.
Yeah.
I will say this, that the year ended last year with food service loss. Food service actually, when it was all said and done, summer school came in and everything. USDA anticipated this and deposited another just under $250,000, $247,000. This will be backdated against that loss and we should be good, okay? That is a good report because, see, that's one of those things, I was reporting to y'all all year long how we were in the positive in food service, but when finally all the chickens came to roost, it was a bit of a loss, and it was a fairly significant loss. And, but this will help offset all that, and I think we're in good shape heading forward.
Well, Mr. Wascom, you're right, but if you look at the hardship that was faced at school food service, that's.
But you have to remember, yes, we're serving meals, and it's all fixed cost.
Yeah.
And then if we only can bill and get reimbursed for what we serve, so if what we serve is significantly drops, which it did during the this time last year. Oh, it was bad.
Well, and the good news about that in general is not only do we have more students face to face, but also we have more students this year. And Ms. Reba had asked me about numbers, and I told her that we don't have a final count until October 1, but as we compared to where we were last year, at the same point in time, I think we're 200 students over.
250.
Yeah, about 250.
Which will impact our budget as well in the future, but I'll update when that's firm.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a significant increase there.
All right. Okay, Mr. Danza?
So, item 7A, permission to advertise for bids for district-wide lawn service, and I think we discussed that. I know Mr. McQuarrie brought it up, and we discussed that, and I think it's a good thing to do, personally, and.
Can we put that in the paper too? I know you do centralbidding.com, but can we do legal news with that too?
We can, yeah, we actually, I think we put it in, yeah, we do central bidding. Yeah, you're right, I guess we're gonna need to go after a local vendor there. So that in the journal, Times in the journal would probably be best. Sorry.
I'm just thinking.
Yeah, I agree.
What is the time frame that we're looking at for advertising?
I'm gonna leave here hopefully Thursday, I'm gonna start writing up all the specs. I think Ryan was writing up all the bid specs for the bid and our expectations. And we were gonna try to put it out here fairly, I hope sometime next week.
So it'll be on the,
Likely be on the November board meeting for approval. So we're gonna limp through with what we have, and then we'll have to address later the issues of our existing lawnmowers and stuff. Cause we are, it's some of them, we pay a lot of money in maintenance and repair on that, an exorbitant amount. We think privatizing the lawn service is the best way to go.
That one, Northwestern went to, they
They
privatized.
did the same thing?
Yeah, they went to it, I think, last year, maybe year before they went to.
Is that right?
Yeah, they don't have a lawn.
And it always looks nice.
Until they actually were employees, like everybody else in America. Like the golf course was looking ragged.
Item 7B, take appropriate action on bids we didn't have any. Item on 7C is a memorandum of understanding with Career Compass.
And Ms. Pinckney was here already, and she had to leave, but basically, Career Compass, we deal with them. They meet with students and they counsel them on post-secondary options. And so they're wonderful. And in fact, Dr. Maggio in his retirement is now working with Career Compass and he's going after displaced youth. So that's kind of just articulating our partnership with those three entities. There's no real verbiage on money or anything. This is just the partnership that we do with them.
Item 7D is annual MOU between NSU and Naxos School Board for facility usage, which is normal.
Yeah, this is the same one. It's yearly. It'll show you it has increased a little bit. That it increases almost every year just based on their costs. They don't make money off of this. They pass along their bill to us. So.
The thing that has increased was the COVID.
Yes.
The COVID issues of spraying.
And just so you know, if anything occurs in the stadium within 48 hours after we play, we have to pay for that additional cost. It's required by their conference.
And I think we discussed that.
Yeah.
Item 7E, NSU Lab MOU.
So this one was really exciting. I would highly encourage you to read through the whole thing. But this has been like 8 months between Lee, myself, Ben LeGrand, and also Dr. McAllister. And it's finally at its resting place for now. Now, we do believe that every year we're going to come back and look at different targets. Some of the things we mentioned in this, we had target numbers for the lab schools. I think right now... Enrollment targets, I'm sorry. So we're looking to add, I think, about 15 student spots overall from where we're at right now at the lab school. We also have target for the middle lab. Within that, we also articulate some information about how we want to extend some scholarship opportunities for students and also increase diversity within the school, which to some degree Dr. McAllister has already done with some things that she's done. For instance, it used to be automatic legacy for CDC students. They've taken that out of the equation, so that allows more students with diverse backgrounds to get into the lab school, because we want the lab school to be reflective of the overall parish and not be homogenous in any way. We've also articulated specifically whose responsibility for different staff members and some things of that nature. There had been some things that we had taken on and some things that NSU had taken on. That it was time to just really put that into verbiage, whose responsibility was what. And we kind of had these understandings based on, it's Dr. Ela and Dr. McAllister. Well, there needed to be language that represented whoever was in the position. Because, Dr. McAllister and I consider her a very good friend and professional acquaintance, but what if I wasn't here and there was someone different and vice versa. So if you read through that, I think it's all positive stuff for us. We basically put into terms what our responsibilities are, what their responsibilities are during the hiring process and all those different things. But the thing I'm most excited about is the targets for student numbers and the targets for how we want to make it a more representative institution. So I would definitely, that would be the one I would take time to read. The other MOUs are a little bit more boilerplate. So
if it's approved, will we do a signing just like we did with the CLTCC and?
So this one, it's not really. We could, because there's some great stuff in there. Like the other thing that's in there is that we started a pilot program for the Educators Rising. I never forego a signing. We could, but it's not probably as large as.
And see, I feel like it is because this is long overdue for our parish to have something in writing with the college, and having other board members there maybe shows the respect due because they do an amazing job.
Then to answer your question, we can definitely set something up.
Yeah.
100%.
Cater? No, just kidding.
It's fine.
That's great. That's great, though, I'm excited about, and the scholarship thing, that goes through with them.
So they've already started that. We put that out there for students who are currently enrolled. They could have applied for a scholarship during this past year. Now, I don't think information super got out to the community, but I think as it goes, people will continue to know. Because we want to make it an affordable option. because, you know, the whole idea of public education, we don't want to be antithetical to that.
7F, 21-22 consolidated budget.
Yes, this is the annual budget that has to be adopted by September 15th by state law. The abbreviated version of the budget is attached. The big 2-ring thick copy of the budget. Chad has a copy of it in the back if you want to peruse it. It'll definitely put you to sleep. And but anyhow, it's real thick. And but y'all are welcome to look at this and look it over. And if you have any questions over the next 2 days.
Don't the years need to change on the top of the general fund? That's like 2020.
I think what?
21.
Okay.
I'm just
Yeah.
FYI. That's not a big-
This is the 21-22 budget though, in spite of if it does say 2021 word.
I mean, you know.
So I would like to tell y'all that last year at this time, we adopted a $73 million budget. This is an $84 million. Where did that come from? Well, by the time last year ended, sales taxes were up so high and increasing some property taxes that we actually ended higher than 73 million, and I made those adjustments throughout the year. But then when you had 10% increase, a minimum expected increase in sales tax, a large portion of the increase is sales tax. Also, all the federal money coming in from ESSER 2, ESSER 3, and Julie was like, "Where'd you get these numbers? These numbers are way too low." So that was today, she was telling us that. But anyhow, we are, we believe that this budget is conservative and as it moves forward. I will tell you, well, first of all, I'll tell you that I have $400,000 in there to tear down one of either 2 campuses if need be. If we have to tear down Bleacherville and or the Head Start location, then that money is accounted for in this, for one of the locations. But overall, the budget is a very good representation of being conservative on revenues and, you know, pretty realistic with expenses at this time. Once again, there are a lot of things, like we are trying to go for grants with the broadband that are as high as $8 to $12 million. We're shooting for the stars for a lot more money there. If we get that additional funds, this will impact our budget dramatically. All of that will be accounted for in future adjustments. But we can't talk about what we think we'll get. We can only talk about what we have inbound. Right. And so this is what we believe to be conservative. I'd like to also extend appreciation to Chad and to Pat for helping prepare all this.
Very good. Item 7G, 3121 update.
Yes, in looking this over, we passed something, 3121 plan. We had included long-term and short-term subs, and adding the short-term subs is just completely unmanageable. The long-term subs is the vast majority, and so some of the short-term subs come and are gone before we have time to interview them and go through the whole cycle of getting them online and everything. So we would like to have, so this is the adjustment in this proposal is strictly to remove the word short-term sub. And it would just be the long-term subs, what we define as a long-term sub. And it's about 75 or so people. It's enough to get going. We will be able to work with this one classification of employees. We get this going, get this all worked out, everything's fine. We can then start adding other classes of employees in the future. Okay, so that's all I'm asking for here is just basically to remove short-term and strictly just stick with the long-term. That's the vast majority of the population that needs attention with this 3121 plan as well.
And what is the short term defined as far as the individuals?
Well, they basically, like when somebody's sick, let's say they've been COVID, they plug a hole and then the teacher returns it within a few days and then they're gone. Long term is like they're literally holding that grade level until we hire.
Really, what we should be calling it is uncertified teachers, because that it's kind of become, you know, a colloquialism with us, but They're not subbing anymore. They are just a teacher that does not reach certification.
Non-certified teachers.
Yeah, they haven't reached certification
Yet.
Growth mindset.
Yes.
Item 7H is a contract for Realtor, which we discussed a little bit.
Okay. If you will see here attached is a copy of the law. I'm looking at, this is the law. I attached a copy of the law as presented. Now, if you go to page 2 on that attachment, you'll see these paragraphs, paragraph A, B, C, D. Go to paragraph F, and I've got my marks around it. Paragraph F is the portion of the law I would like to follow. So, we basically hire a real estate broker at a fixed percentage, and it's only for 6 months at a time. But we have a lot of little properties out there. No forester is going to manage it for like 10, 12 acres. Maybe sometimes there's only 2 acres. We actually have on the intersection of Highway 117, Highway 118, somebody's already on our property, but because we don't even really know it's our property, we were worrying about squatters' rights there. But the thing is we need to manage all this property. In some cases, it would be in our best interest to take small little pieces of property we have all over the parish and actually sell it so we can start collecting property tax from it, honestly. I think that would be probably in our best interest. It is not big enough for any kind of facility. If we maintain mineral rights and there's oil and gas in the future, then we'll still have interest in that. So part of this is a discussion. I had approached Janice Bolton's Bolton Realty and asked if they would be. The reason is that she approached me with several pieces of property that she's representing the customer. We really have no position, nobody in position to represent us. We have Joe. We keep Joe pretty busy. I didn't think we'd keep Joe this busy, but we need somebody who can take a look at all the properties that we have everywhere, look at which ones should be sold off and are of no use to us, and then we can start actually collecting property tax from that property. Also, it would be just less liability as well, where we have issues of liability on those properties. Once again, I don't have any intention of really selling off properties that we could easily forest. I mean, I'm not talking about like our 640 acre stretches of land, and no Section 16 property can be included in this discussion. It's just everywhere we have property. I had no idea we had property on the corner of Highway 118 and 117.
And that's someone who came to us looking to
Yeah, they
purchase
came to us to buy it, and then we have no process by which to even really consider this. So I was wanting to hire a realtor, and maybe that's what Reverend Harris wants to do, is we maybe put out bids. But it's all kind of fixed by this. They can't bid on, well, we'll offer you a different commission rate. It's all really pretty much fixed. But you're going to ask the first realtor to go through all our properties, analyze, and maybe even hire an appraiser to see what the proper value should be. Determine which ones are in our best interest to sell and some of which we might want to keep. And just to analyze it, it's actually a property manager to some extent for free of the ones we're looking to sell off. Now the ones we choose to keep, that's a different discussion. Mr. Garner was talking about that we also need a process of hiring somebody. The guy who did our forest, like for the properties we want to keep, which I recommend our big tracts of land to keep. But the gentleman who does our forestry, he was just going to set a generic price, but when you actually look at the law for that, it's almost, there's an argument whether we need to have every piece of property, have everybody put in bids on how much they would pay for hunting lease. And that gets to be a big
Well, and I remember the price quoted, I believe it was Mr. McGuire and a few others, we thought that price was pretty low.
Low.
$7? $7?
Seven.
What they paid, and I know
Some people get 13.
Yeah, or more. Some
Well,
of
now,
them-
the last time we bid off the hunting up in my section, it went for $12 an acre.
Yeah.
And stuff, and it was only, unfortunately, one person bid on it. But there's like 600 acres there that they want for hunting purposes, which we've missed this hunting season.
Yes.
So it's too late to do it, but it gives us a whole year to get it advertised and do it, possibly parish-wide for next hunting season.
So, Mr. Watson, because
But y'all understand that each piece of property would
Yeah.
have to go with its own separate bid, it's gonna be a.
so how
it's
does
gonna be
that
a
work though?
mammoth.
Okay, because we're saying that every realtor is gonna give us the same
They
rate.
can't- Yeah, it's all fixed, the percentage rate here, and it's only a 6 month
So
at a time.
if we put it on an RFP for that, how do we?
Differentiate. Yeah, how do you choose one?
My point is, it's like a professional contract, so my thought was, she's one of the realtors I've never done business with, so nobody will claim that I've been biased one way or the other.
That's
Well,
just
what
me.
I would
We got
suggest,
10 more other people.
No, but I think it's.
That's just me.
No,
let's
having
just, do whoever interested in it, put your name in there, and then at our next board meeting, they'll put all their name in a hat and pull it out, and that's who we pick.
Mr. Watson.
That would be a fair thing, because if we give one realtor that, then they're gonna say it's a favoritism to that one or whatever, just give them all a fair chance. That, you know,
We do have our attorney present. Do you have a such?
Tankia Palmer is also saying, let's do bids.
But there's nothing to bid.
it's nothing to be there, they can't charge the same price.
Some of them don't wanna deal with it because there's a cost benefit for them too. The time can be substantial and the return could be negligible. So we almost need to develop some type of, I guess, a little
Rubric or something?
set of standards or set of circumstances that we're looking to see in terms of the management of the property and see who would actually be interested.
Not to mention it's a 6-month contract, and that's a substantial amount of work and a tight amount of.
That's right.
That is exactly right.
Usually the first person that does it is not gonna be the beneficiary, but someone who comes along after them, after all that work's been done.
Because then we have to go through a cycle of declaring surplus property, and then we put it up for sale. It's gonna be 6 months before we can start doing it.
6 months. is not
So
much.
I guess my
But
question
whatever
is,
we do, we have to, again, make sure that even if it's a hunting lease, we have to require that they provide insurance and that we're named as an additional insured on that.
well, no, because my thing is, I agree with you, make some sort of rubric, but outside of their cost, I mean, I'm at a loss as to what would be on that rubric except for their resume. So,
Well, it's almost like, at the end of the day, are we looking for a property manager versus a person to help market, or are they gonna wear both hats? At the end of the day, I think Lee's concept is a good one in that there's some property that if we can market it and get great value for it, if it's not serving any real benefit for the school board, it's just
It's
kind of like
liability. It's liability.
just a property that's not being put to its maximum use. Let's get the money and use it for something that we can benefit from.
Yeah,
But
but
they'll-
that property, what people using right now, we don't get nothing off of it.
Absolutely.
only
People
that-
are using some of our
Yeah,
property.
Not only that, Mr. Twyver, there's no insurance on it either.
Yeah,
So
we've
we've
got-
got a double whammy there.
Yeah, we can't have anything going in the future.
well, and I'm
It's not
sensitive to
a
what
policy.
Reverend Harris is saying too, because being a small, and I know, but it being, usually when we have services, it's some big service that, someone out of state or international, this is something there's a lot of local realtors, and so we wanna be mindful of that just local piece to it. And so, because, people will think what they think, and so just being very transparent in the process.
I think, if I can interject,
Yeah.
I think we need to have a job description, what the expectations are going in. And then from there on, if they wanna bite, and whatever method we choose, if that's a 1 through 3 or 1 through 9, and use the randomization off the computer as opposed to the hat, because the hat's not really a.
I'm still old fashioned.
And some of the realtors don't provide
You know,
property
say that
management.
it would be this person would be
Good
contracted,
idea,
the
though.
realtor would be a contract, person.
My,
They have a contract for a certain amount of time.
well, actually, the paragraph F limits this for 6 months.
Okay,
And it also sets it at 5%.
okay.
So see, a lot of the things, if you read A through E, it's kind of cumbersome to deal with, particularly with all these properties all over the place.
Well, and there's something else too, Mr. Lee, is every appraiser that I know of in the country is 6 to 8 weeks out.
That's right.
For commercial property. And so, we're asking for a 6-month deal, and just think how many properties we have, and just, we could have one person just tied up for, so, you guys keep that in mind too.
Now, the one that, the 6 months, can we, after the 6 months, still do with them another 6 months?
Sure.
Or whatever, because that's what I was thinking about, state of just say 6 months. If they come and do all that work, I wouldn't wanna pick somebody else after that 6 months, because they have did all the legwork, and then we didn't kick them off the side. I would say, if you take it this year, could we acted, state of just say 6 months, could we say a year they would have it?
No.
I think that's their contract.
What's that?
That's what they contract with the customer for, is 6 months.
That's nothing to say we can't renew it,
Can't renew it.
but I mean, it doesn't, we can renew
Yeah,
it.
you know, because I wouldn't wanna put it on a realtor to do 6 months and all this work in 6 months, and then we go pick somebody else and all they gotta do is like, check it off. Because
So,
it's already
if you list some performance standards, and this board feels that they've met those performance standards, you can tell them in advance that we're gonna give preferential, benefit, if you will, to those persons that work with us and meet those standards.
Okay, yeah, I'd rather have it that way than just, somebody.
I agree,
coming
because
at
you're
6
asking a
months.
person to put in a lot, it's a lot of effort. This is, okay, so, property managers for the property we keep. This was the idea of identifying all our property and which ones we want to release and sell and put back into the system. Because we have little scraps of property all over the place, and it's significant. I think it'll surprise you when we get the final list.
So I think we're in a good spot though, because what we said is, we're not gonna vote on this Thursday, or y'all are gonna vote on this Thursday. We could bring this up at the September retreat. And so in the meantime, Lee and I can discuss maybe a rubric or some sort of data points or whatever, and that way we can come to y'all with that, and then we can vote, y'all can vote on it in the October board meeting.
That's not a bad idea.
Okay.
That's basically what I was saying.
What's that?
That's basically what I was saying. All right.
That's done.
Lee,
Okay, I
thank you
think
for
that
all that you
completes.
do for us.
I'm just trying to get it all cleaned up, so we can have a simplistic system that makes sense to us all. And things don't get caught. See, a lot of things I see, a lot of things get through the gaps. And we just lose sight of it, and then a couple of board,
I know there's
10 years
I
later.
know there's like 5 acres down there in the old school at Moore.
That's right. There's some down in Florida, there's some wood that
It's just,
it's still got
it's all
remnants.
falling down.
And they got several spots in the parish that ain't with acre, just an acre, half acre.
Correct. See, all these little simple things, but no forester is gonna say, I'm gonna forest 13 acres. They're not gonna do it. They want hundreds of acres of it.
And whoever joining that property, if do 1 acre, 5 acres, something, they probably go ahead and buy it, just make their property bigger or whatever.
Right.
Reverend Harris is about to, he's about to bang that gavel.
Gavel on me. Okay, all right. I'll see y'all later.
Are you sure you're right? All right. That's it?
That's it.
All right. Go ahead, personnel, early childhood.
Yeah, so we have Miss Cassandra Anderson. If y'all recall, she's just grant happy, and she has 2 early childhood literacy coaches, which are fully funded by that grant. They're contract, so when the grant runs out, the contract runs out. But these are going to help her move that vision forward. And I hope I didn't steal all the thunder, but those are the things that were most important to me. Is that it's contract.
And they will be working with CR schools that are low, the teachers that are needing that extra help. And so we will have one that will be working with public school, and the other one will be working with child care centers. And we have that money in different buckets.
And just to reiterate, it's contract work, and when the money runs out, the contract runs out.
Correct.
And none of it's general fund.
Correct. Correct. Any other questions?
If you need these persons ongoing, would you reapply for another grant to continue to pay them?
Yes.
Because undoubtedly there's a need.
Yeah, there is a need, and we will definitely apply for another grant if needed. But for right now, we're gonna try to, make sure that we don't promise them the moon, knowing that the stars are there as well. So yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's a great need for you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Executive Report 9A, discussion of proposed housing development near St. Maurice and any future city development related to student safety mosquitoes.
I asked that this be put on our agenda because I was approached by several people, quite a few people in my district. This proposed project is in District 1. In District 1, there are 3 schools, all in close proximity on East 5th. Congestion at every school, coming and going to school is always a problem. But those 3 schools in particular on East 5th are terribly congested and always have been. There's no easy access. It's quite just the volume of kids, a lot walk, the buses coming in from out in the parish and delivering kids there, and then the parent drop-offs. When I first heard about the proposed housing construction, and we all recognize the need for affordable housing in this area, but where that project is supposedly going to be located is situated right behind those 3 schools. The property would have access from St. Maurice. It should be, it was designed, from what I've read and what I've been able to find out, as single-family affordable housing. It will be gated with one way in and one way out on St. Maurice Lane. Now, St. Maurice, as most of you know, intersects East 5th on that corner where Weaver is located. To get to Weaver in the car line, you have to go down East 5th between East and Weaver and line up behind all 3 schools on the behind the baseball fields. The car line forms there. The exit for that car line is on St. Maurice. The problem is St. Maurice is substandard, to say the very least. It's an extremely narrow entrance, and there are deep drainage ditches on both sides. There are no sidewalks, there are no shoulders. If you meet a car, you have to kind of pull over because in certain areas because there's just not room to pass. The people who contacted me are extremely concerned about that, not only for the added congestion for the area, but for the safety of our children. And our goal as a school board is not only to educate our children, but to keep them safe while they're in our care. And I just want to throw that out there for the board's input on that. I think this is coming up before the city council. It's been supposedly all of the necessary paperwork has been signed off. This developer is out of Jackson, Mississippi, and 37 units with 1 entrance on this road really concerns me.
If there's no sidewalks, how is those students in that subdivision going to get to school if they don't walk down the middle of the road?
There's no sidewalks, there's no shoulders. The road is extremely narrow. Like I said, there are drainage ditches on both sides, and there's one drainage canal that crosses not only St. Maurice, but Blanchard Road, where you make the turn to come in from like 494 or on that end of the parish.
And they're close enough that they're close enough to the school, a bus won't pick them up, correct?
They can't go.
Can't go, so they would have to walk to school.
It's way less than a mile, just.
They'll either have to walk or they'll have to add to the congestion with the car traffic. And
Flooding problem down there?
I'm sorry, what?
Won't that be a flooding problem down there possible?
There is a flooding problem there. It has been for forever. I've lived in this parish for over 50 years, and I've traveled that road quite frequently. I'm not sure how this got through planning and zoning, but apparently the documentation was all approved. So now this is going to the city council. I just want the city council to be aware of my concerns, and I would think that it would be the concerns of the board for the safety of our children. I mean, that is the bottom line on this.
I can't see where it's gonna be that much of a safety, because 9 times out of 10, they're gonna build sidewalks, and then we're asking to do away with, 35 homes, you say? That's gonna be over $200,000 home, and we go to everybody else to pay tax or whatever, and look what these, because all they can file is 75,000 homestead exemption. Look at the money we make off these houses that we, every so many years, going to the taxpayers to ask for money. Well, look how much money we're bringing in there to our school system to try to stop this subdivision. We have never, on this board, try to stop a subdivision. That should be with the city of Natchitoches, or police jury, or whatever, the parish, that's their business. We shouldn't be, because I can't see no different safety, because we got schools in neighborhoods that's really bad. We don't have no problem with safety with the kids. This neighborhood, I don't see where it would be a problem. Safety? What kind of safety? We got kids right now walking without sidewalks to school. Actually, last year we had one with sidewalk that run over. So, it's just, we can't say what's going to happen here, because I can't see the sense of us trying to stop a subdivision that we beg for money all the time. That's the only way we get our money, tax. And you think about what money it would bring in, a $200-some-thousand home, the property tax we would get off that house.
And that's...
Yeah, but is that that's a rental property, it's not a purchase deal. I think.
It's a lease.
From what I see.
It's a lease to own.
Yeah, from what I see.
Well, whoever leased the owner, they still got to pay the property. Somebody got to pay property tax on it. They can't be sitting there, nobody pay property tax on it.
I think the thing here is there is an exposure when you add those additional cars. I think what we really need to do, from my perspective, is just let's talk about what message, if any, we should send the city council on what our concerns are by adding this to 3 schools right here in this small.
I don't think we need to send the city council nothing. Let them make their own decision. I don't see why we need to be trying to get where we can pay more taxes, get people to pay more taxes in this thing. Because we steady losing population. That's what the last census, that we need to try to get some more people to move in here. That stuff, because right there, in a lot of the neighborhood, down there in Natchez, the kids walk to the bus stop. They don't have no sidewalk on 119. 119 is a whole lot busier than Highway 1 is a whole lot busier than St. Maurice Lane or 5th Street.
I don't have a problem with that. My problem is the safety. When you're talking doing this construction, we're talking not a couple of months. It could go several months or years with heavy equipment in and out of there on those substandard roads where it's already congested and kids trying to get to and from school. And I'm not trying to stop a subdivision by any stretch of the imagination. I just want the concern for the safety of our school children to be brought to the attention of the city council before they decide to put a subdivision, not necessarily this area, but any area, because of the proximity.
I can't see where's the big safety issue with them walking or them building a subdivision. I can't see the big issue with the safety thing.
There's actually no sidewalks there, but Ms. Guido brings up an interesting point. And I've lived through this subdivision type thing, build, which was behind us, and you have 14-yard dump trucks in and out, laying pads, you got concrete trucks, you got contractors, you got 18-wheelers running in and out, delivering material, and look, the thing is if you don't see anybody walking on St. Maurice Lane, and there's a reason why, because you jump straight from road to ditch, and I think my concern would be, what are these kids gonna do to get to school and how are they gonna get to school? Because there's a lot of traffic comes in from 494, runs up Blanchard Road, comes up St. Maurice Lane. There are people that turn right and go out and do the same thing. My whole point about the safety of these children is that if we had some adequate sidewalks or something, or a way for these kids to walk to school, it'd be a lot different. But right now,
If you're not gonna get a tax base, you can't build, you can't, field, you can't do any of the things that you all are talking about. But if you, wanna grow, you're gonna have some growing pains. And that's a part of growing pains, traffic, you know. But you're not gonna ever be able to build no ditches or fill no ditches, make those roads like they're supposed to be.
And I speak
not
like
the
I was,
actual problem.
a lot of the problem is right there, the people that's bucketed the most, because they tried to build subdivisions, seen that further down St. Maurice Lane and all that, and they couldn't have because of the flooding area. Now they bucking this because they almost got the plan that they can do it. That's the biggest problem over there, because several contractors have denied the build things that they wanted to build over there. But look like this contractor gonna get it where they want to build, so they got a problem with that. So why, just because you didn't get it, you want to stop somebody else from progressing?
And I'll just be honest, my problem is not with what you all talking about. If y'all had, first of all, it was told me about this that never came to me. This first time I'm hearing it from you all, I called for you, and those people who were supposed to be doing this, the contractor should have been here so you could have asked him all those questions. How are you gonna do this and how are you gonna do that? But somebody from the community contacted you all. So, and I understand, Ms. Petros, that's in your community. You ought to be concerned about it. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But that's not the issue that's going on about safety and all that good stuff. But the biggest issue that I would have with this particular plan, you're talking about 45 years that you're going to be, and the mind frame of everybody around here is buy you a house, live happily ever after, not rent you a house. So that's what I thought you was concerned about. Because when you're developing a subdivision and thing, you're gonna have traffic, you're gonna have all kinds of stuff. When I think about Little M, which was the size of Clarence, when I think about right out from what's his name, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, they built all that stuff using this same type of plan, But the people here are not, they don't have that type of mentality of renting this property. And unless that developer can convince those people to do that, then this is not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen.
And I'm in agreement with you on that, if it was a straight out, building home for purchase, no problem. It is a lease, and the lease is too long. And the contract that they got, in place, because he came to a meeting at the, city hall and explained how it was gonna work. I wouldn't have any problem with it because we need homes. We need affordable homes. And people that work that have not been able to afford, we need some that are affordable. And as far as what Mr. Matuan said, that is what goes. I mean, we have safety issues already. Kids walk to a school. And if it comes to pass, the cities don't have to go in and fix the drainage, do sidewalks and all that. Anytime you build a new subdivision, they'll address all of that. So it's not like it wouldn't be addressed. And we need it, and I totally agree with you, we need more housing. It's just the way that it's his proposal is not it's not our job to handle this.
No, it's not.
And I agree that we need housing, and I don't like the lease type deal, but we need it. And it is not our job to get involved because
I agree, but I think it's just me. I think the concept is great, just not right there. Just not right there in the middle of all those schools. And where all those car lines pitch out, where all those buses come through, where all those kids are, and
So the tax base won't,
Reverend Harris, it won't be a tax base, this is all gonna be subsidized stuff.
I'm just saying, if it was where the houses are built there and you get a tax base there so that you're able to build the roads like they should be. But that's one of the reasons roads have never been addressed in that area. They don't have a tax base, period. And our schools who don't have any tax base. That's the reason the outer skirts schools are getting, buku's money to renovate and do things, but the inner city schools are not. Because nobody wants anything to be developed in the inner city. If you take it from there, take it somewhere else, it's still gonna have somebody say, no, not here.
Again, my concern is the safety issue. If you have ever traveled down St. Maurice Lane, and I would challenge every one of you to drive that, and also to drive Blanchard. That road, is deplorable because it's low. When you dodge potholes, you either hit the ditch or hit another car. I mean, that's just getting to St. Maurice. But St. Maurice, there's nowhere to put sidewalks. There's nowhere to put a shoulder. And the amount of traffic that will be generated with one in and one out, if they could find a way to put an in and out somewhere else, but there's nowhere. And that jeopardizes the safety of our children, and that is my primary concern.
Go over to LP Vaughn, go over to where the magnet school at, and see how congested the traffic is. Just today, out that Enterprise, the line was backed up from the magnet school all the way to the highway. The bus is waiting to turn in the highway. That's how it was back there. So everywhere you go with the school system is congested.
Right.
So what's the difference with over there being congested?
The congestion is there. It's going to be explosive with a subdivision of this size, with single-family housing. We're talking possibly putting sidewalks and stuff in the future. What happens in the meantime when all the construction is going on? What happens to those people who live in that area?
Well, even if with some of the single-family homes, and they have the children in there, look what we get kids in our system that we losing kids and that. So let's try to get something where we get more kids, where we can get more MFP money.
Are we gonna do that, or are we just gonna transfer their location from one spot to another?
Not necessary. Might be people out of state coming.
Because they had somewhere to come to.
Yeah.
I had a young lady come from Harnville, who's a teacher. But she doesn't have anywhere to stay. So she traveled on to McKinney, Texas.
I am not an advocate for trying to tell city council or anybody else where to put a subdivision. I just think that we need to make them aware of the safety concerns because of the proximity of these schools and the potential hazards for our children.
So the item on the agenda says discussion of proposed housing development. What's the end game? We're discussing it. Do you want a resolution or what? We're just sitting around hoping the city council will listen to us. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the end game?
Just to make them aware that we would like them to, anytime there's a development that's near a school, to take all of this into consideration as far as, especially the safety of the children. Not just this subdivision, but anything that's so close to a school. And on the checklist, there was nothing about any of that mentioned. It was just, this is where we're gonna put it, there's gonna be one in, one out. It's gonna be on St. Maurice Lane. Well and good, if St. Maurice were a viable facilitator for getting kids to and from school.
To your point, Ms. Phelps, moving forward, that might be the thing to do. Before anything is proposed, especially around school,
Well, I would
let's talk
support
about that.
safety initiatives for children in all neighborhoods,
Yeah.
definitely. But I think we're all stroking our own egos to think that we can alter the decision of some entity that's not even our own.
No,
You know,
I
I mean,
agree,
just
I agree.
let's stay in our lane and focus on child safety. Like if we need a resolution or, you know, something to go out to all neighborhoods and all schools, I would support that. But
I support something like that.
But I think at the end of the day, if we send a resolution or something saying we oppose this neighborhood, we're
No,
definitely
not
not in our lane.
Not that we oppose it, we do oppose it for the safety reasons for the children, but for any construction near a school.
So if it was a construction that had all the right things, we would oppose affordable housing that would, make that neighborhood plus our schools have a healthy tax base and everything like that. So we would still oppose it.
I'm not following you.
I'm just saying, if it wasn't this particular developer that's got some $200-some thousand houses that he's gonna rent for 45 years. Okay. So if it was somebody who said, we're gonna give you the same thing, $200-some thousand houses, and we're selling them to you.
What he said.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what they said at the beginning.
Yeah, that was the story at the beginning, and then it morphed.
I'm sorry I'm out of line, but that was his proposal at the beginning, and that proposal has since changed from owner occupied to rental.
I think my concern, I know my concern, I hadn't heard anything to address the sidewalk issue or the walk. And we can't send a bus because it's less than a mile, and that's my concern all the way. Like I said, I've lived through.
So those kids would be walking.
I've lived through the building of one of these subdivisions behind my house. It is and if anyone's ever been on Hicks Road, it is a pig path, just at best. And 18-wheelers running you off the road and 14-yard dump trucks is a constant parade back there, still going on. And that's what's gonna happen on St. Mark's Line. And so there's
saying we won't be sending it, they all won't be walking because we got the kindergarten and pre-K, we got them over at LP Bond, so that you'd have to pick up the very small kids, but then you got
Weaver,
East and Weaver, that's the only one you would have walking there because you'd have the junior high and the lower grade from junior high up, you'd have them going somewhere else, so you wouldn't have
That's grade
but
3,
four
5, and
grades
6.
would you want your 8-year-old walking down that road? That's the thing.
Right now without sidewalks
And I've heard nothing to make provisions for that, and that's my only concern is that.
That is the only concern, to me, it's getting the cart before the horse. If there was a safe way to get the kids to school,
Well, I would hope that
Most of the parents are gonna be
developer is
working,
gonna
parents
do their
probably gonna
part
drop them off.
in their particular subdivision. But now that's not their job to put sidewalks for the city. That's city job.
And how you know what they if it's joining our property, that developer could put a wall where they go just straight right behind, but there's a road right behind the school where they drop off the kids, where they can go right in there, they wouldn't even have to get on the St. Maurice Line.
I haven't seen anything that says.
No, they don't say nothing, they don't say about the sidewalk, they don't say that, so we don't know what actually they're planning. Because they could actually put a gate that they go right there to Weaver. A gate where they go to the junior high, Weaver. So we don't know what they're gonna do, if they're gonna build sidewalks, or they're gonna build skywalks.
that's what I'm saying, the safety has not been addressed. If that had been addressed in this, before we just rubber stamped it, to me, it's getting the cart before the horse. Get that situated, and then if you have the subdivision to go there?
Well, you
I
have,
mean,
you're voting on it at the next, city council meeting.
13th.
I'm sure you can go and ask them those questions about safety. And see what they have in place.
Before I came here with it. I
You say it's not
would have addressed the developer.
Yeah. Address the
no, I just think that we need to, as a board, let them know that we are concerned. Now, I'll do a personal letter if necessary, but I think this is a board matter.
I think that's what you should do with personal.
I'm not trying to, I'm not
'Cause
advocating that.
I'm not for stopping the progress of, this city or this parish growing. I'm not, you know, with that.
The definition of progress is, to me, progress is moving forward. You know, you pay paradise and put up a parking lot and then look back and say, oh, what have I done? You know, that's, and again, I'd like to think that as a board that we could issue some kind of resolution or something saying, please, when you planning and zoning, whoever, take this into consideration when you're locating any subdivision near a school.
And do we even know, have they even looked at it? Have they even decided? It's still in the planning thing. If you go to them and say, okay, well, we've got to consider with the kids, we trying to stop it before we even seen the plan. We don't even know what the plans is for sidewalks or whatever, what's the street side or what they planning on doing for draining. We don't know none of that. So we putting the cart in front of the horse.
And I think we need to wait and get all that information.
We need to have this information. If you come with this information that the plan, they don't have, they're not doing a sidewalk, they're not
After we
doing
get
this,
all the information.
then we would have to say this is gonna be a safety, safety issue. We don't know if it's a safety issue or not. Cause we don't know the plan. We just trying to stop it before we even see the plan. Have you seen the plans of what it's supposed, all we know it's supposed to be, well, you say 30-something, Steve say 40-something houses.
It's 37.
So we don't even know what the plan is.
36 houses, 36 houses and one.
There's no sidewalks on the preliminary plans that they presented at the, planning commission.
But I bet anybody any money, you go to the developer and say, okay, if you put a sidewalk in, it'll be okay to plan. I guarantee you put a sidewalk in. You probably put
Whatever's needed.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'll just give you a perspective from a general contractor. If I'm fixing to sink this kind of money in a project, and the city tells me that the school board's concerned with safety, the very minute amount of money that it takes to put drainage and sidewalks in is nothing to me. It means nothing. So if I can come and build my project and make the city and the school board happy, I'll put whatever they need in there. Because trust me, at the total, at the very end, when all the numbers are turned in on this project, there's an extra 5% added to that for just this stuff right here. And whatever that total amount is, that 5% can be done for this. That's what it's in there for. If it's not used, that's just extra profit. But I promise you, if the city tells them for us to move forward, we need to do a little, they may put a turn around, they ain't no telling what they would be willing to do. Because at the end of this project, as big as it is, that little tiny bit of money means nothing to that contractor. Nothing. That's just an investment in the community.
Mr. Mike, what your point is very well taken, but how do they find that out unless we express it? And so that's what this conversation,
Well, the conversation is just whoever's at the city that's working this project just has to tell them, look, our school board is concerned with the safety. This is what can you bring to the table? Can you put the drainage in the sidewalk? Can you put another gate? What can you do to help warrant safety for the kids and make our school board feel comfortable?
And I promise you they'll do whatever, pretty much whatever you ask them to do. They're not giving up this project over sidewalks. That ain't how it works.
So I totally agree with what you're saying.
I've been a part of building 4 schools or 5 in Mobile County, and trust me, when you start, that little bit of money there means absolutely nothing. It's already in the budget.
Yes, I just, in researching this, they said there was only one public road, and that was St. Maurice. And I went to looking into it, just to let y'all know, for your information, School Road, which is the one you said that they back up on, that actually is owned by us.
I drove it, I rode down it.
It's actually owned by us, and so are all those ball fields.
Yeah.
So I just want to let y'all know, when it comes to the maintenance of the, on the side, is that something we need to, in the future, donate to the city so they can maintain the roads, because eventually these roads will tear up. But just to let you know, we are still in ownership of those roads.
I drove down it. Cause I wanted to see.
That's the only way they can get to the ball fields back up in there.
Right, but that was, see, deals that were made back in the 80s about putting all that infrastructure in, but the property was never donated to the city for them to maintain. I'm concerned from an area of property management. When that road tears up, do we have to now pay to repave it? I would rather not. I would rather not. So my concern is that really we didn't build that road, but we take advantage of it. And if the city needs to be, I know from developing, I've been a developer, and you just take the road and the boundaries and easements and donate it to the city, and they maintain it. But then, but anyhow, that might help. But I just want everybody to know that is something I researched, because I was surprised that School Road was not a public road. So it will be something we'll need to maintain in the future.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? All right.
Okay, 9B, COVID leave policy amendment, Dr. Ely.
Yes, ma'am. So what we found is, as we all are aware, whenever we quarantine an individual due to exposure, that's going to be a 14-day quarantine unless they get COVID tested after 5 days, and then it can be shortened to an 8-day quarantine. Obviously, we want to have our teachers in class as much as possible, but at the same time, we also know that medical decisions are very personal in nature, but we are offering folks COVID leave. And by offering them this COVID leave, which not every district is doing, and it is in excess of their normal leave, we believe that we have the ability or right to ask for them to shorten their COVID quarantine if possible. We have had some folks who, for whatever reason, who have chosen not to do that, which prolongs their quarantine, which means less time for the teachers to be in front of students. We also recognize that there's a monetary issue with COVID testing. But with our new partnership with LSU Health Sciences, we can give them free COVID testing. And so what I would like to do is an amendment to the COVID leave policy, which will basically state that they are only have the right to that leave if they are willing to be tested and shorten their COVID quarantine from 14 days to only the 8 days. So it's not mandatory testing, anything of that nature. It's simply saying this is a privilege, a benefit, so to speak. And if you are going to enjoy that benefit, then you need to kind of meet us halfway, I guess is the best way to put it.
Any questions?
I think we need, Superintendent Elo, I think we need some firm guidelines on how that's gonna be communicated and because everyone needs to hear the same thing, and there won't be any disparity.
Yeah, we can definitely have a form for that. Right now, we've really streamlined COVID leave in general. Mr. Kozad and his team created a form where they apply for it online. This would really, what we're only talking about here is we're really talking about a very specific part of COVID leave. Because you can have COVID leave for being positive, you can be COVID leave for your child being positive, you can have COVID leave for being exposed. We're purely talking about, in this situation, an individual who was exposed. So that's pretty narrow. So you're exposed, that dictates 14 days, but the CDC guidance says after the 5th day, you can get tested, and if you have a negative test and no symptoms, you can come back on the 8th day. And so instead of, there's always that one person who kind of spoils it for everyone, and unfortunately every place has this. We just want to say, hey, instead of taking that 14 days, and many of these people aren't showing symptoms, it's not that they're sitting home sick, they're just exposed. What does it mean just to go have a simple nasal swab at no cost to you? We will take care of it, and then you can come back to work. That's going to benefit you, it's going to benefit the kids, it's going to benefit everyone.
And that's after the 5th day, right?
So
they can go and.
So they don't get tested until after the 5th day, because anything prior to that is too premature. And then if it's negative, then they can come back on the 8th day.
Yeah, because I think a whole lot of that is going on. I guess they must not be telling the people the truth, and they're testing them too early.
Mm-hmm.
If they test too soon during that quarantine period, they will throw a negative test.
That's right.
And then 2 days later, they will test high.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And that's what's going on around the state.
And from personal experience, that's what happened to me. I tested early, it was negative.
Yeah,
tested.
Sunday you went back.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we are adamant with people to test in the proper timeline, not just to test, but test proper timeline.
Yeah, I could have told you that though. That Saturday I saw you. That Saturday I saw you.
I didn't look too good.
No.
I felt fine.
Well, some jobs, not even, if you hadn't had the shot, you get COVID. If you haven't had the shot and you get quarantined or get COVID, they're not even paying.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've had the shot, they're paying. A lot of jobs is going to that now.
Tell you something else too. The CDC had it out when the vaccines first came out. They looked at it and they said, if you're exposed, test 3 to 5 days, but we're not quarantining you. And test 3 to 5 days. 4th, 5th day is optimal. And a lot of times you'll test negative and you go on about your business. Now, that's with these breakthrough cases, that's kind of changed.
Yeah. And I'll tell y'all that overwhelmingly our folks are doing the right thing and they're not pushing the system. But this is one little kind of, I don't know if you want to call it closing a loophole or whatever it is, but bottom line, this is not political for us. This is about if we can have teachers for 6 days sooner in front of their students, that's a benefit to everyone. And so that's what we feel is in the best interest of students.
So we'll be voting on that Thursday night?
Yes, ma'am. But I can give y'all, we're still we were working out some of the discussion parts of it, but we can give you a firm in-hand one-page document that really narrows down the policy.
Yeah, we need to articulate the same message.
With an effective date?
Yes. I mean, the effective date on this would be as soon as, if y'all vote in the affirmative, as soon as that happens. Yes, sir.
Friday morning, 7 o'clock.
Nobody did. Got to give them at least a day.
9C, 21, 22, pupil progression.
Super quick, this is something we have to do every year. It just updates pupil progression. Feel free to read this very lengthy document at your leisure, but for the most part, it's just every year we make some slight remediations to address things. The big thing this year was articulating the needs for the dual enrollment pathways, because there was some language in our previous pupil progression that didn't allow for certain things to happen. But it's very minor. Most of this is dictated by the state. There's a template, and then we just kind of fill in the blanks. So
I didn't see much changes in there at all.
really just the dual enrollment piece was the biggie. We send this out, schools look at it and peruse it because they're the ones who have to live with it, so.
Any questions? That concludes the executive report.
All right, any further questions, comments?
Just before we end, I just wanna, say, it's a concern from teachers. I know there's confidentiality involved when it comes to COVID testing and kids having to go home and quarantine and, exposures and if they're tested positive. I know there's a feeling about uneasiness, they don't feel comfortable because they don't know what's going on, and you have students that are in your room and you know that they're gone for a few days, you know something is wrong. And I would hope that they would follow through and ask to ensure that the teachers are tested so that they'll be safe, because they really don't feel safe now with all that's going on.
So, if
a lot of them don't feel safe.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, no, and just real quick, if a student tests positive in a room, a teacher should, and I know the principals know that teacher is to be told that if there's a positive in the room. Now, if a student quarantines because of exposure, we don't, and really no district is doing this, you don't go down the rabbit hole of a student was exposed outside of class, they're in your class, so you were exposed to an exposure. Because just to do the math of it all, we've all been exposed to an exposure every day. And so it kind of that 6 degrees of separation, if we informed everyone of every exposure to an exposure to an exposure, it literally would be everyone. But separate from that, anything we can do to put teachers at ease about mitigation efforts, and I think that's a worthy effort.
That's the main concern.
Yes, ma'am.
Make them feel more at ease.
Yes, ma'am.